Chapter 284. Li Zongjiu glanced at the woman before him. "Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you now?" Li Zongjiu asked. However, the woman raised her head slightly. One could see the incomparable determination in her eyes. The fact that she was able to become a 3-bronze blood strike guard of Qingyuan Manor at such a young age was enough to show that she had experienced a lot. If she didn't have sufficient talent and determination, it would be difficult for her to persevere. "I'll die sooner or later. If you want to kill me, then I'll die a quick death." There wasn't the slightest bit of fear in her eyes. Although she was already forced into a dead end, she wasn't willing to die like this. This scene reminded Li Zongjiu of himself in his previous life. In order to survive, he had also struggled through countless sufferings and tribulations. In the end, he had also become the final winner. Very few people had such perseverance and determination. Most of the time, it depended on luck. Sometimes, hard work wasn't enough. It really depended on what kind of person you met. Therefore, when she saw Li Zongjiu, the woman didn't hesitate. "What's your name?" Li Zongjiu's tone softened a little. It didn't matter to him whether he killed one more person or one less person. Since this person had been a bloodstrike guard, it would definitely be a pleasant thing for him to turn around and deal with Qingyuan Manor with the blade in her hand. "My code name is Gold Silver Bird." "You don't even have a name." "Since you're a 3-bronze bloodstrike guard, then I'll call you Santong from now on," Li Zongjiu said indifferently. When she heard Li Zongjiu's words, the woman initially didn't dare to believe it. She hadn't expected that Li Zongjiu would actually be willing to take her in. One had to know that bringing her along would undoubtedly increase the degree of danger, and the speed at which Qingyuan Manor would find them would also greatly increase. It wouldn't be long before Li Zongjiu was caught. Perhaps he would die even faster. After all, both of them were thorns in Qingyuan Villa's eyes. However, this woman had seen Li Zongjiu's actions and actually dared to openly confront the Qingyuan Villa. She definitely had her own confidence and strength. It was better than him directly dying like this and wanting to take it. 3 coppers. Could this name be any more casual? However, Santong didn't care. To her, this name was just like her previous code name. It was just a code name. "Santong, thanks master." "You don't have to call me master. Just call me young master," Li Zongjiu said. Santong's desire to live had moved Li Zongjiu. Therefore, Li Zongjiu wanted to see how far a person could grow with his help. Li Zongjiu didn't restrict Santong in any way. If Santong wanted to leave, then he could. If he wanted to kill Li Zongjiu, then he could go. Li Zongjiu had 10,000 ways to turn Santong into ashes. This point, Santong must be very clear in his heart. "Throw these corpses into the river," Li Zongjiu said. If this continued, it wouldn't be good. "Yes, young master." In less than a minute, more than a dozen corpses were thrown into the river. During this process, the passengers on the ship didn't dare to get close. After all, Li Zongjiu and the others were too strange. Based on the way they did things, it was obvious that they weren't ordinary people. Moreover, they had killed so many people. Although they were on a public ship, strictly speaking, they weren't in the city. Unless someone reported the case and someone came to investigate, Li Zongjiu and the others could kill everyone on the ship without a problem. Most of these people were ordinary people. Some of them were just crossing the river to work. They didn't want to cause trouble at all. They just watched as the girl expressionlessly disposed of the corpses. Some of them desperately covered the eyes of their companions, afraid that Santong would remember their faces. They also wanted to show that they didn't see these things. With a loud boom, the ship reached the shore. When the ship reached the shore, the passengers and some of the crew stuck their heads out one by one. However, they found that the boy and girl had already disappeared from the deck. Along the way, Santong bought a horse from a passerby. Along the way, it was common for them to meet caravans by chance. It was also very normal for them to buy some food and other supplies. Of course, Li Zongjio was the one who paid for it. San Tong didn't have a single cent on him. As they approached a border town, they came across a roadside shop. The fragrance of noodles wafted over. Li Zongjio wasn't hungry, but when he heard the cold expression on San Tong's face, his stomach started to growl. Although the situation was a little awkward, San Tong still managed to control his expression. "How long has it been since you last ate?" "Half a month," San Tong replied. "Half a month?" That was about the time Li Zongjio had killed Zhang Yu. It seemed like San Tong had encountered a disaster when he had returned. What's so hard about killing someone and robbing them after fleeing for so long? The Blood Strike Guard isn't a bandit. Our duty is to protect. San Tong seemed to choke up as he said this. Unless you were a god, you wouldn't be able to survive without eating for half a month. That's bullshit. Li Zongjio scolded him. San Tong looked at Li Zongjio in surprise. He didn't understand why Li Zongjio was so agitated all of a sudden. Remember, being alive is everything. Duty and responsibility are all bullshit. People are already dead, so what's the point of being righteous? Li Zongjio seemed to be deeply moved by this. Although San Tong wasn't very happy with his words, he didn't retort. However, he still said this. San Tong will remember young master's teachings. Remember, if you reach a dead end, there's no need to be polite. Kill them until they turn the world upside down. Li Zongjio flicked his sleeves and jumped down from the red mane horse. San Tong remained seated on his horse as he pondered over Li Zongjio's words. Indeed, San Tong's heart was shaken at this moment, and a storm was set off in his heart. "Boss, give us 2 bowls of noodles." While San Tong and Li Zongjio were eating noodles, a group of people dressed like bandits walked over from afar. They pushed the table and came over in a hustle and bustle. There were many of them. When they saw Li Zongjio sitting at San Tong's table, they immediately walked over with great interest. A loud smack was heard. A golden machete was slammed on the table. His iron boots were covered in mud and he stepped on the stool. There was a green foxtail in his mouth. He sat opposite San Tong, while Li Zongjio sat on his right. "Oh, what a tender girl. Do you want to play with us?" Chapter 285. However, San Tong acted as if he did not hear anything. He continued to eat the noodles in his bowl. In such a short time, San Tong had already eaten 3 big bowls of noodles. He was definitely able to eat. "Boy, is this your girl? She's mine now. Get out of my way." As he spoke, the burly man tried to push Li Zongjio's shoulder. At that moment, San Tong made his move. San Tong's hand suddenly shot out. Just as the burly man's hand was about to touch Li Zongjio's shoulder, San Tong grabbed his hand and twisted it effortlessly. With a snap, the burly man's finger was broken by San Tong. "Ah! My hand! You're courting death." In the next moment, San Tong picked up the bowl in front of him and smashed it on the burly man's head. The burly man was directly sent flying by San Tong and fell to the ground. Blood spurted out from his head. "You're courting death, stinky girl." The burly man's subordinates saw this and gathered around. San Tong also stood up without hesitation and blocked in front of these people. Just as Li Zongjio had said earlier, he would turn the world upside down. "Cripple this woman and that boy over there." The leader, whose head was smashed, roared. Hearing the leader's order, these people did not hesitate. They all picked up their weapons and charged at San Tong. However, San Tong was faster. Moreover, with her strength as a blood uniform guard, these ordinary bandits were not enough for her to kill. This time, San Tong did not show any mercy. She did not use her blood-rimmed long saber, but a dagger at her waist. In just half a minute, these people's necks had been stabbed. Most of them were not directly killed, but their blood did not stop flowing. It continued to flow through the gaps between their fingers. Some people simply sat on the ground and waited for their deaths. They waited for their blood to continue flowing. Their hearts beat faster as they felt their blood flowing away. Their consciousness gradually became blurry. Don't kill me, the leader, whose head was smashed, lived to the end. He had never seen such a bloody, cruel, and inhumane way of killing people. After cutting open their necks, he watched as their blood flowed out bit by bit. He didn't show any mercy at all. After doing all this, he looked at him very calmly. "Speak, who sent you?" San Tong said coldly. Her many years of experience as a blood strike guard had taught her that things weren't as simple as they seemed. The assassins on the ship and the robbers in the restaurant had clearly been hired by the same person. Because they all seemed to have a common trait, which was that they were not professional. If it wasn't done by Qingyuan Villa, then it was done by other enemies. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. Since he was now under Li Zongjiu's command, of course, he had to make some contributions under Li Zongjiu. Otherwise, why would Li Zongjiu bring such a dangerous person with him? It's Bei Ho Liang from Black North Giant City. It was Bei Ho Liang who gave us the money to come. After the leader finished speaking, he felt a chill on his neck. Regardless of whether he spoke or not, his fate would be the same. Blood spurted out from his throat. The leader immediately clutched his throat and pointed at San Tong. His eyes were as wide as copper bells, as if to say, "I've already confessed. Why do you still want to kill me?" However, his gaze didn't last long. His neck tilted and he fell to the ground. The dozen or so corpses would soon turn cold. Bei Ho Liang from Black North Giant City, San Tong looked at Li Zongjiu. When Li Zongjiu heard this, he didn't seem surprised at all. It was as if he had already guessed it. "Let's go." Li Zongjiu spurred his horse and landed on the red-maned horse. San Tong quickly chased after him. The dozen or so corpses on the ground were left there. The owner of the restaurant didn't know what to do. There were so many corpses, and these people were like the kings of the nearby mountains. He had heard about them before, but he hadn't expected that such legendary figures would die in front of his eyes. What should we do, after some preparations? Early in the morning of the second day, several figures appeared in front of the noodle shop. They wore pointed hats and green boots. One of them had a long knife at his waist with 4 copper wires wrapped around the handle. This person's gaze was like a griffin. When he stared at you, you would feel as if a piece of flesh had been dug out from your body. It was so ruthless. Casually looking at the corpses on the ground, they were all killed by a knife at the neck. Clean and neat. Furthermore, before these people died, they also felt the pain of their lives being drained away. This kind of execution-style method. It was incomparably familiar. It's Jin Yinyao's blood-sealing knife. Shopkeeper, where did those people go? Wuxia Pass. There were 70,000 heavy infantrymen and 20,000 cavalry stationed in the pass. Within a day, they could move 300 miles. It would take them less than 3 days to reach the next pass. If the cavalry went first, they would be one step faster. Near Wuxia Pass, there were 3 gathering places for origin beasts. These places were extremely dangerous, but at the same time, they were rich in resources. Within Wuxia Pass, there were often troops who would be brought to these places for training. Li Zongjiu and San Tong came to the first gathering place for origin beasts. If they wanted to reach Wuxia Pass, there were other ways to go around it. However, that would take more time. It would be faster to go through it directly. In front of them was a vast bamboo forest. This bamboo forest was not made of simple bamboo. Other than some emerald green bamboo, there were also some dark red bamboo hidden in it. These bamboos were called blood bamboo. For some bear-type origin beasts, it could be said to be a delicacy. Because of this, in the blood bamboo forest, one could often see some thick stones by the side of the road. Once these stones appeared, it was best to leave immediately and walk as far away as possible. Because these stones were actually origin beasts that were dozing off. Once they sensed you approaching, they would definitely bite your neck off. Even the blood mane horse's footsteps slowed down as it slowly moved through the bamboo forest. In addition to the red color of the bamboo, the fallen bamboo leaves were also a faded red. Young master. Suddenly, San Tong stood in front of Li Zhongjiu and said softly. Li Zhongjiu also stopped in his tracks. In an instant it was as if a gale had started to blow around the bamboo forest. Roar! It was as if a ferocious beast had woken up and sensed the two's arrival. After this angry roar, it was also a warning to Li Zhongjiu and San Tong. It was telling them not to run. Chapter 286. This sudden warning caused the two of them to become alert. Something's not right. San Tong said in a low voice. He suddenly lay on the ground and pressed his ear to the ground as if he was listening to something. Oh no, at least 7 meta beasts are coming towards us. When San Tong stood up again, the shock on his face was indescribable. Boom! As soon as San Tong finished speaking, the ground in front of them suddenly trembled. 3 huge gray bears leaped from 3 different directions and landed in front of the two of them. When they saw this scene, San Tong was shocked. The violent shaking of the ground almost caused San Tong to lose his balance. His feet shook. However, the aura of the 3 gray bears was what really shocked him. Bloodthirsty silverback bears. The 3 gray bears were actually bloodthirsty silverback bears. Bloodthirsty silverback bears were the ultimate weapons of war among meta beasts. Their skin was thick and their defense was strong. At the same time, their recovery ability was very strong. As long as they didn't die in a battle, they could recover with a little time. Therefore, their survival rate was very high. In addition, their fighting style was extremely violent. It was like a storm, making it hard to breathe. This was the real terror. These bloodthirsty silverback bears were also extremely explosive. Once they identified a target, it was impossible for them to let go unless they trampled the target into pieces. However, the most important thing was that these bloodthirsty silverback bears rarely acted in groups. San Tong also stood with his saber in hand, staring at the 3 bloodthirsty silverback bears in front of him. The 3 bloodthirsty silverback bears seemed to have come together in an organization. They didn't look like ordinary meta beasts at all. There are still 4 meta beasts hiding in the dark. With my strength, I can at most stop 1 bloodthirsty silverback bear. Later, I'll stop 3 and young master will take the opportunity to leave. San Tong didn't expect to encounter such an unlucky thing. The 3 bloodthirsty silverback bears in front of him were enough to put him in a desperate situation. At most, they could escort Li Zhongjiu to safety. If Li Zhongjiu could not escape, then both of them would die here. San Tong used to be a blood strike guard, so he had naturally undergone strict training to fulfill his duty. Thus, he couldn't just abandon Li Zhongjiu and leave. There's no need to leave. Li Zhongjiu glanced at the bloodthirsty silverback bears. These bloodthirsty silverback bears were self-proclaimed kings. If they encountered each other, there would be a fierce battle. After all, in the same territory, there could only be one king. If they encountered others of the same kind, they would be regarded as their enemies. The presence of these 3 bloodthirsty silverback bears was enough to explain the situation. These bloodthirsty silverback bears were being controlled by someone. Li Zhongjiu quickly figured it out. Thousand Beast Sect. Luoxia City was attacked by someone from the Thousand Beast Sect. Li Zhongjiu had already forgotten the name of that person. Li Zongjiu didn't know how many people like that person had killed, so he didn't deliberately remember it. However, Li Zongjiu had also studied Qing Yuan Manor. After all, anyone who was related to Qing Yuan Manor was Li Zongjiu's enemy. The Thousand Beasts sect was naturally the first enemy to bear the brunt of this. The Northern Medicine Alliance was just a small medicine alliance. How could it have the shadow of an expert like the Thousand Beasts sect? Thus, there must be a matchmaker behind the scenes. This matchmaker was none other than Qing Yuan Manor. It could be said that the Northern Medicine Alliance was basically under the control of Qing Yuan Manor. Therefore, if they needed to do anything, they only needed to say a word. After the Northern Medicine Alliance was destroyed, the people from the Thousand Beasts sect had also gone to Wuxia city. It wasn't difficult for them to find Li Zongjiu. Looking at the current situation, the people from the Thousand Beasts sect must have come looking for him. Are there any sects within 1,000 miles of this place? There are the Thousand Beasts sect, Great Yuan sect and Golden Fate sect within 1,000 miles of this place. Young master, do you mean that the people from the Thousand Beasts sect want to deal with us? San Tong's eyes suddenly flashed with astonishment. That's right, the Thousand Beasts sect and Qing Yuan Manor have a lot of dealings. San Tong also remembered that he had followed the leader of Qing Yuan Manor on a trip to the Thousand Beasts sect. The Blood Strike Guards were trained to protect important people with their lives. At the same time, they were also a troop with strong executive ability. Because of this, even though the Bloodstrike Guards weren't very eye-catching and were frequently deployed, they were still in control of certain matters. Therefore, if a Bloodstrike Guard escaped, no matter the price, they had to be pursued to the end. If the Bloodstrike Guards escaped at the slightest provocation, Qing Yuan Manor wouldn't be able to afford it. They had to let the Bloodstrike Guards know. It was impossible for them to escape. Only death would await them. Don't worry, they aren't looking for you. Li Zongjiu replied nonchalantly. The three bloodthirsty silverback bears seemed to have been waiting for a long time. When they saw Li Zongjiu, they immediately roared and charged at Li Zongjiu. Only one of them attacked, while the other two stayed where they were and watched the battle as if they were cheering for Luo Yunyang. Li Zongjiu was incomparably domineering, as if he had an indomitable will. Be careful, these bloodthirsty silverback bears are extremely strong. Their strength alone is comparable to a Sky Origin ancestor. San Tong couldn't help but shout when he saw Li Zongjiu act so impulsively. However, it was already too late. Li Zongjiu threw a punch at the bloodthirsty silverback bear. The bloodthirsty silverback bear also threw a punch at Li Zongjiu like a giant hammer. Boom! Li Zongjiu's arm snapped with a cracking sound. The bloodthirsty silverback bear roared. Although it had broken Li Zongjiu's arm, its own arm had also been severely injured. At the same time, it kicked Li Zongjiu and sent him flying. Boom! Li Zongjiu flew back. San Tong hurriedly stepped forward and tried to help Li Zongjiu up. However, Li Zongjiu waved his hands and got up from the ground. Their target is me. Hide aside. I'll deal with them myself. Li Zongjiu's interest was piqued. He swung his broken arm around a few times, and he was able to move it at will. San Tong's astonishing recovery ability was also worthy of praise. Looking at Li Zongjiu's appearance, although he was in a sorry state, he was interested and wanted to continue fighting with him. His opponent could have broken his arm with a casual punch. There was such a big gap between them, yet he still wanted to continue fighting. Even if he ran away now, no one would blame him. San Tong looked helplessly at Li Zongjiu, who was rushing forward again. However, he did not dare to be careless. Instead, he stared at the situation around him very seriously. After all, there were still enemies in the dark. Is that all you've got? In fact, Li Zongjiu had not only broken his arm, but also his ribs. However, in just a few breaths, he had basically recovered. Therefore, on the surface, there was nothing abnormal about it. In fact, if it had been an ordinary person, it would have been equivalent to a crippled person. It seemed to have understood Li Zongjiu's provocation. The bloodthirsty silverback bear immediately stood up. Its bare claws easily drew 6 gullies on the ground. Seeing Li Zongjiu rush forward again, the bloodthirsty silverback bear's bestial nature was completely aroused. It suddenly pounced on Li Zongjiu. This time, it did not pounce. Li Zongjiu's figure flashed and appeared behind the bloodthirsty silverback bear. He landed on the bloodthirsty silverback bear's back and grabbed a handful of its fur. Then, Li Zongjiu's fists continuously landed on the bloodthirsty silverback bear's back. His fists did not stop falling. Similarly, a powerful force was reflected back. The bloodthirsty silverback bear's defense was quite terrifying. Bang, bang, bang. The bloodthirsty silverback bear suddenly rolled in a circle, trying to press Li Zongjiu under its body. However, Li Zongjiu was pressed under the black bear's body. He felt as if his internal organs were all shattered. Damn, practicing this ancient golden tyrant body art is really not easy. Li Zongjiu spat out a mouthful of mud in the dark pit and then climbed up. The bloodthirsty silverback bear saw that Li Zongjiu was still alive. Chapter 287. The bloodthirsty silverback bear flashed its claws. Suddenly, it roared, as if it wanted to dig Li Zongjiu out. Li Zongjiu endured the razor-sharp claws and climbed out of the pit without a care for his own safety. If not for the fact that he had to practice the ancient golden tyrant body technique, he would have killed the bloodthirsty silverback bear a long time ago. Killing such a small bear wasn't difficult for Li Zongjiu at all. Li Zongjiu's body recovered a couple of times amidst the repeated fractures. Finally, he crawled to his feet. When the bloodthirsty silverback bear attacked again, Li Zongjiu saw the opportunity and punched the bloodthirsty silverback bear's neck. Suddenly, the bloodthirsty silverback bear's neck was broken by Li Zongjiu's terrifying strength. Because after many exchanges, Li Zongjiu also found that his body's recovery was too strong. The bloodthirsty silverback bear's attacks didn't have much effect on increasing his cultivation, other than causing him pain. This time, it exploded. Ayo! The bloodthirsty silverback bear's body slowly tilted and fell to the ground with a bang, setting off a strong vibration. What? Seeing this scene, Santong was shocked. From Li Zongjiu's previous actions, he could see that Li Zongjiu seemed to be using the bloodthirsty silverback bear to cultivate something. It also seemed like he was testing something with the bloodthirsty silverback bear. Seeing Li Zongjiu easily take down the bloodthirsty silverback bear, Santong's eyes were filled with shock. In fact, when he saw Li Zongjiu fight with the bloodthirsty silverback bear, he already knew that Li Zongjiu's strength was not simple. How many people could take a punch from a bloodthirsty silverback bear head-on? Even a Sky Origin Ancestor powerhouse wouldn't dare do that. Furthermore, Li Zongjiu hadn't even used his Yuan power, which made him even more powerful. Given Li Zongjiu's strength, killing a Sky Origin Ancestor powerhouse would be a piece of cake. It was no wonder that he had been able to kill Zhang Yu so easily. If Li Zongjiu hadn't killed Zhang Yu, she wouldn't have had to live in exile. However, it wasn't a bad choice for her to choose another path. After the bloodthirsty silverback bear fell, it didn't get up again. A Yuan beast that had actually killed its bloodthirsty silverback bear. When Santong heard this voice, he quickly jumped and chased after the bamboo forest. However, the bloodthirsty silverback bears TSSSSSSS. They had been watching the battle for a long time. Now that their comrade had been killed, they naturally went berserk. With a loud rumbling sound, 2 huge bodies chased after him. You overestimate yourself. Li Zongjiu shook his arm and twisted his body. When the 2 bloodthirsty silverback bears chased after him, he instantly leaped into the air and chased after them. Whoosh! His body swayed in an instant. His speed made the bloodthirsty silverback bear's eyes blur. Then, they realized that their backs seemed to be loaded with lead. The bodies of the two bears suddenly fell and collided with each other with a loud bang. This degree of impact made the bloodthirsty silverback bear growl. Obviously, the impact of this collision was quite strong. When its body fell, the bloodthirsty silverback bear found that its body could no longer move. Damn it, my silverback bear is injured. Mine too. In the bamboo forest, three figures quickly communicated. However, when Li Zongjiu launched his counterattack, the three of them realized that something was wrong. The bloodthirsty silverback bear that had lost control fell to the ground, unable to move. All of a sudden, the three of them became alert. It seemed like someone was approaching them. Die for me. San Tong found the three of them. He also understood why the four meta beasts didn't attack. It turned out that they stayed here to protect the three of them. Therefore, they didn't attack. Therefore, when San Tong discovered the three of them gathered here, his body leaped up and rushed toward them. He was immediately discovered by the meta beasts that were guarding the area. They saw a pitch-black poisonous snake crawling down from the bamboo. In an instant, it bit at San Tong's neck. San Tong's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He threw out the long knife in his hand. The poisonous snake bit the long knife and lost the opportunity to attack. After escaping, San Tong stepped on the bamboo beside him. In the next moment, his body flew out. Swoosh! San Tong was about to fly out and attack the 3,000 beast sect people. He discovered that the poisonous snake that had attacked him just now. He suddenly stretched his body out and immediately pulled San Tong to cultivate his qi. Not good. San Tong instantly realized that something was wrong, but it was too late. The strength of the snake coiled around his waist was so great that it was about to break his waist. Bang! A black poisonous snake. A level 4 meta beast, red giant prime snake. San Tong directly smashed to the ground. He didn't have a defensive technique like Li Zongjiu's, so his internal organs were almost shattered. San Tong directly spat out a mouthful of blood. A mere meta beast wants to kill us? Haha, kill her. An old man said indifferently. The one who did this was his meta beast, so naturally, it was enough to be arrogant. This was the red giant prime snake, which was extremely poisonous and good at trapping and killing enemies. San Tong was smashed until he almost fainted. The red giant prime snake was still wrapped around him. He couldn't move. At this moment, San Tong saw that the red giant prime snake's body was actually more than 10 feet long. Such a long snake, it seemed that he couldn't escape. The vision in front of him gradually turned dark. Just as San Tong's vision was about to turn blurry, he heard a soft sound. Then, the hand that was wrapped around his body suddenly loosened. This immediately made San Tong gasp for breath. When he opened his eyes, he saw a giant snake's head fall. This head was the red giant prime snake's head. San Tong's eyes widened when he saw this. He instantly realized who saved him. Who else could it be? The person who saved him was naturally Li Zongjiu. She saw Li Zongjiu standing at the same spot. In his hand was the blood-edged long knife that she had thrown out earlier. What, just the three of you old men want to deal with me? Li Zongjiu saw the three figures standing in front of him. Then, he looked around, as if looking for the others. Is there no one else in the Thousand Beasts sect? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. The three old men heard this and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Most importantly, one of them was unable to restrain his anger. He pointed at Li Zongjiu and roared. You killed my red giant prime snake. Chapter 288. The great red prime snake was something he had painstakingly nurtured for many years. It had already grown into a level 4 origin beast. If it could take another step forward, it would immediately become the great red prime snake king. Then, it would at least be an elder of the assembly within the sect. It would no longer be a deacon. So much so that they had to personally act to capture a brat like him. To them, this was truly a humiliation. You deserve to die 1,000 times over. The deacon pointed at Li Zongjio as he bellowed. Li Zongjio was extremely disdainful when he heard this. Do you really think you can decide my life and death? Li Zongjio's gaze was extremely provocative and disdainful, as if he didn't think much of the three people before him. San Tong, who was lying on the ground, regained his consciousness. When he climbed to his feet, he looked at the corpse of the great red prime snake on the ground and a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. This was a grade 4 yuan beast. Yet, it was killed so easily. Just how powerful was Li Zongjio? Go to the side and recuperate. Li Zongjio flicked an elixir pill over. San Tong took the pill that Li Zongjio had tossed over and took a closer look. He was immediately attracted by the aura of the elixir pill. This is a level 4 elixir pill. San Tong was so shocked that he almost couldn't breathe. The elixir pill in his hand was actually a level 4 elixir pill. Just this fact alone was enough to shock San Tong. He had only been following Li Zongjio for a few days, yet a healing elixir pill that he had casually given out was actually a level 4 elixir pill. The three people opposite him were also envious. When they saw the elixir pill, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The three of them were all origin ancestors. However, they had only just broken through to the first-grade origin ancestor realm. Furthermore, they were beast tamers and had no way of refining their origin spirits. Therefore, compared to other origin masters, they had fewer tricks up their sleeves. However, they were able to nurture stronger origin beasts. The improvement of their own strength was also very important to them. They practiced the method of communicating with the meta beasts every day and night. Although they wanted to improve their cultivation, it wasn't that easy to break through. The fastest way to become stronger was to consume some pills. Only in this way would they be able to quickly break through and become even more powerful. It's the 3-flower vitality gathering pill. Brat, give me that pill. I can leave your corpse intact. When the three old men saw the elixir pill in San Tong's hand, their greed was immediately exposed. This grade 4 elixir pill was very expensive. If it was just 1 or 2 of them, there would naturally be no problem. However, cultivation required a huge amount of elixir pills. It was precisely because of this situation that they especially cherished the gains after this battle. Their mission this time was to kill Li Zongjio. In their opinion, this kind of revenge mission was not difficult or profitable, although they did not know why the three of them were sent here at the same time. After all, it was a sect mission and they couldn't shirk it. The three bloodthirsty silverback bears were in fact casually controlled because they were in the mood earlier. After a while, these bloodthirsty silverback bears would become disobedient. This kind of temporary control also had a time limit. If one wanted to control a meta beast, it would be extremely difficult. When they saw the 3-flower vitality gathering pill, they seemed to become more active. The first to make a move wasn't the three of them, but Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio sneered and rushed to the side of the bamboo forest. When one of them saw Li Zongjio's actions, he suddenly had a bad premonition. Oh no, my serious poisonous spider. The cry of the serious poisonous spider, which was the yuan beast he had reared, sounded in his mind. It turned out that the 8 legs of the serious poisonous spider were more than 20 meters long and towered over the bamboo forest. If one didn't get close, it would be difficult to discover that there were such spider legs in the bamboo forest. Li Zongjio's blood-rimmed long saber easily cut off the serious poisonous spider's joints. Bang! The serious poisonous spider landed on the ground and spat out a mouthful of venom at Li Zongjio. At the same time, it was accompanied by spider silk. If one was hit, they would definitely be soaked in the venom until their whole body rotted. Whoosh! No one knew how Li Zongjio did it. He actually appeared behind the serious poisonous spider at an extremely strange speed. With one slash, the serious poisonous spider lost its ability to move. Beep! Li Zongjiu looked up and saw that the bamboo forest on both sides had been cut off by a pair of huge wings. He saw a huge bat rushing towards Li Zongjiu. The momentum of its dive seemed to be able to split a mountain in half. At the same time, its wings were quite sharp. Good timing. Vajra blood bat. Its wings were like Vajra blades, indestructible. At the same time, this blood bat was good at sucking blood. Among the origin beasts, it was a terrifying killer. As for humans, its venom was completely useless. This was because once it bit down, your head would be gone. This Vajra blood bat was also the controller of the great red prime snake from before. Kill him! The elder roared angrily. The Vajra blood bat suddenly sped up and charged towards Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu faced the Vajra blood bat and leaped. When the Vajra blood bat opened its mouth, the blood-rimmed long saber in his hand had already slashed out. Whoosh! The saber landed. With a surge of origin energy, the Vajra blood bat was instantly split in half by Li Zongjiu. There was even a trace of a burn mark on the wound. Not a single drop of blood dripped out. This was because Li Zongjiu was in the process. He had used the obsidian fire. The obsidian fire had been infused into the saber technique and was naturally very threatening. The Vajra blood bat did not even know how it had died. In just half a minute, another 2 origin ancestor realm origin beasts had been killed. At this moment, the 3 of them finally understood why the sect had sent the 3 of them here. This guy's fighting power is terrifying. Summon the Montu beast immediately. Seeing this, the 3 of them did not have any objections. They immediately connected their powers and a terrifying power was released from their bodies. Boom! A gust of wind seemed to have appeared on the ground in front of them. When the 3 of them gathered their powers and rushed towards the sky, a figure descended from the sky. Like a meteorite, it fell towards the ground. What? The Montu beast. A half-divine beast with the Titan bloodline. San Tong's eyes widened when he heard these people's words. He had never imagined that the 4th origin beast would be the Montu beast. It was no wonder that the 3 of them had to come together. The Montu beast had the Titan bloodline and was extremely difficult to tame. Therefore, it usually required 2 to 3 elders to summon it together. Boom! When the Montu beast landed on the ground, the entire blood bamboo forest shook violently as if there was a strong earthquake. Chapter 289. A creature with golden fur all over its body appeared in front of Li Zongjiu. It looked like a gorilla, but its head was gradually becoming similar to a human's. Most importantly, its large eyes were like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. The terrifying murderous aura contained in his eyes caused others to feel deep fear in their hearts. Montu beast. I don't even know how many of your father's behemoths I have killed. Li Zongjiu immediately snorted. The Montu beast seemed to understand Li Zongjiu's insult, and it immediately roared. Roar! Then, it waved its iron fist and smashed it towards Li Zongjiu. There seemed to be a terrifying aura flowing on its fist. The power on its fist was bursting forth. Before it got close to Li Zongjiu, a destructive aura gathered towards Li Zongjiu. Under this aura, very few people could withstand it. As the Montu beast's huge fist landed, there was a loud boom, and a wave of energy on the ground quickly spread to Li Zongjiu's feet. Li Zongjiu's body shot out. However, as he chased after Li Zongjiu, the shockwave swept over and rolled Li Zongjiu's body to one side. The Montu beast's strength had already reached the level of a 3rd-grade origin ancestor. In terms of combat power, it was even more powerful than Chu Aoran, the sect leader of the Fog Pill sect. Roar! The Montu beast roared again, and its body rose from the ground like a cannonball. It crossed its arms, forming a hammer, and smashed it towards Li Zongjiu's body. Suddenly, Li Zongjiu was like a rubber ball, and he was instantly sent flying. Bang! Li Zongjiu landed heavily on the ground. A deep pit with a radius of nearly 10 feet had been blasted open on the ground. As expected of the Manta beast. Such combat power is indeed terrifying. At this moment, the three protectors were also extremely shocked. Although the Manta beast was usually trained, it seemed to have been angered today. Therefore, its combat strength was especially terrifying. Even Li Zongjiu, who had attacked fiercely, was ruthlessly thrown to the ground. Young master, looking at the dust rising into the air, San Tong could not help but worry. When San Tong saw this, he couldn't help but worry for Li Zongjiu. At this moment, Li Zongjiu didn't know what was going on. The three-flower soul-gathering pill in his hand was very likely to be a life-saving pill for San Tong. If Li Zongjiu needed it, San Tong would give it to him without hesitation. However, San Tong could also feel that Li Zongjiu's aura had not weakened at all. The Manta beast, who was standing at the edge of the huge pit, wanted to see Li Zongjiu's corpse appear in front of him. However, when the dust settled, he realized that Li Zongjiu had already disappeared. Roar! The Manta beast immediately let out a cry of surprise from its throat. Where did that brat go? Could it be? Oh no! One of the old men suddenly realized something. When he raised his head again, he immediately saw a figure falling from a high place. In his hand was a pitch-black iron hammer. Mysterious lightning hammer. Bang! The old man's head instantly exploded like a watermelon, and brain matter splattered everywhere. It directly splashed onto the other two old men. The two of them were also shocked by the sudden change and immediately exclaimed. Ah! One of them opened his mouth wide. However, in the next second, the mysterious lightning hammer knocked out the entire row of teeth with a bang. The teeth that were knocked out turned into sharp hidden weapons as they rolled out of the mouth and pierced through the organs in the stomach. Puff! 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 3 of the teeth whistled and directly rushed out and landed on the ground. Fresh blood continuously flowed out from the stomach. The strength of the iron hammer was really too great. You actually dared to kill them. The last old man was stunned and quickly distanced himself from Li Zongjiu. The last person was the one who had previously clamored to kill Li Zongjiu 10,000 times. In order to show his ruthlessness, Li Zongjiu was very willing to let him live in pain. When one was living in fear, one would know that every breath was so difficult. It would be very difficult for one to have the confidence to continue living. Your Manta beast seems to be waking up soon. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. After killing the 2 people, the Manta beast seemed to have a headache and did not continue to chase after Li Zongjiu. After all, the Manta beast needed 3 people to control it at the same time. If any of the 3 people had a problem, the Manta beast would most likely go out of control. Therefore, the Manta beast held its head and rolled into the deep pit. Looking at the state of the Manta beast, the old man knew that he was completely done for. Now, he did not know what he could do to move Li Zongjiu. You! Don't come over. You let me go. Let me go. I will give you whatever you want. Obviously, the old man was extremely afraid of death. How could the old man calm down when he saw the 2 living people's heads explode in front of him? Who would have thought that such a situation would occur after he had broken his teeth and swallowed them into his stomach? No one would have thought that he would have a lingering fear when he thought of his own teeth in the future. Who did you say deserved to die? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. He used his sleeve to wipe off the blood on the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand. He seemed to have the intention to stop. It's me. It's me. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Please forgive me and let me go. We have no enmity between us. I am just working for the sect. Although the two meta-beasts that he had painstakingly raised were dead, the lives of the meta-beasts were not as important as his own life to him. If he died like this, he would rather use all the meta-beasts in exchange for his own life. San Tong stood in the distance. He, who was familiar with all kinds of situations, could see that Li Zhongjie would not let him live. Li Zhongjie's strength was so terrifying that he could turn the tables in the hands of the 3 deacons of the Thousand Beasts sect. Such fighting strength was not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Moreover, the Manta beast might not be Li Zhongjie's opponent. However, Li Zhongjie chose a simpler way to solve the problem. You don't need to die. Dying once is enough. Li Zhongjie helped the old man up from the ground. Then, he placed a palm on the old man's back. Instantly, a huge force sent the old man flying. A surge of origin energy sealed all the major acupuncture points in his body, causing the old man to be unable to use his origin energy. He could only let the origin energy take him away. The direction he was flying towards was the deep pit where the Manta beast was rolling. Chapter 290. Although the Manta beast had lost control, it still knew who had once controlled it in its current state. When the old man's figure fell, he subconsciously caught the old man. At that moment, the deacon of the Thousand Beasts sect was shivering. When he saw the Manta beast's behavior, he couldn't help but feel excited. Could it be that he could still be saved? Thinking of this, the old man hurriedly took out an origin tool from his bosom and began to mutter. Then, he slapped the Manta beast. Listen to my orders. Suddenly, a ray of light seemed to fly towards the Manta beast. This was a temporary method of forceful control. It was enough for the Manta beast to take him away. However, he seemed to have overestimated his own strength. With his strength, it was practically impossible for him to control the Manta beast by himself. The Manta beast's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a sinister smile. The old man in front of him was stunned. Listen to my orders. Kneel down. Kneel down. The Yuan weapon in his hand kept releasing rays of light. The Mengtu beast also slapped the origin tool away. At the same time, it twisted the old man's head off and threw it into its mouth like candy to chew. Such a bloody scene caused San Tong Xin to be alarmed. He wasn't worried about the scene of the Manta beast eating people. Instead, it would be a disaster if the Manta beast lost control and chased after them. A Manta beast that lost control would naturally be even more terrifying and return to its bestial nature. San Tong held the dagger in his hand tightly and stared at the Manta beast in front of him. At this moment, the Manta beast had eaten the last person. Although its body was still a little uncomfortable, it already knew that it had regained its freedom. Roar! The Manta beast roared as if it wanted to provoke San Tong. It glared at San Tong in front of it. Faced with the threat of a Sky Origin Ancestor level Yuan beast, San Tong stood where he was and didn't dare to move. Just as the Manta beast couldn't help but attack, Li Zhongjie walked out and stood in front of San Tong, staring at the Manta beast in front of him. The killing intent in the Mengtu beast's eyes shifted to the human in front of it. He saw that Li Zhongjie's aura was stable, and his eyes were calm. The Mengtu beast muttered in its heart. As a meta beast that had reverted to its bestial nature, it naturally knew the threat level of this enemy. Some enemies were easy to provoke, while others were not. Once they were provoked, it was very likely that they would be threatened. Li Zhongjie's calm gaze became a threat in front of the Manta beast. The Manta beast stared at Li Zhongjie for a while before finally taking a small step back. There was no need for him to get entangled with Li Zhongjie. He could just leave. There was no need for him to stay here any longer. Whoosh! The Manta beast immediately left, its figure disappearing. It did not live in this environment. If it stayed for too long, it would be in danger. The local kings would definitely come looking for it, and it would either fight or die in battle. That was the situation. Seeing the Manta beast leave, San Tong finally felt relieved. San Tong finally heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. If the Meng Tu beast had gone berserk and wanted to eat someone, then between the two of them, Li Zongjiu might have been eaten by the Meng Tu beast. His gaze alone scared the Manta beast away. It could be seen how powerful Li Zongjiu was. "Let's go," Li Zongjiu said. The people from the Thousand Beasts sect actually dared to ambush them. When Li Zongjiu was free, he would definitely make them pay the price. Since they came looking for him, it was very likely that they would send people to Wuxia city. When they entered the pass, they would need to send a letter back to see what was going on. The smell of blood permeated the air, and with so many restless auras, it was very likely to attract other meta beasts. Hence, they had to leave this place. At this moment, outside Wuxia city, a black-clothed old man was riding a giant scarlet bird as he flew across the sky. He was heading straight for Wuxia city. However, before he could get close to Wuxia city, he was stopped by someone. Swoosh! A figure landed on the back of the bird and stared at the black-clothed old man in front of him. The black-clothed old man was also shocked by the appearance of this person. It was the first time he had seen such a powerful qigong. "This is not a place for you to come. Leave," Feng Qingyu said indifferently. Her body was as light as a swallow. Even the giant bird did not sense Feng Qingyu's appearance. If the black-clothed elder did not see it with his own eyes, he would not dare to believe that there was an additional figure in front of him. "How dare you ask me to leave? It seems like you don't know who I am." Thousand Beasts Sect's second deacon, Yao Quan, Feng Qingyu said indifferently. At this moment, the black-clothed elder's face finally changed, his eyes suddenly became gloomy. "Who are you? Are you from Wuxia city?" "I am from Thousand Horse city." "We know why you are here. Go back and tell your sect master that you can't touch Wuxia city." After Feng Qingyu finished speaking, the black-clothed elder lowered his head to look. There were dozens of horses running wildly under the ground. Ta-ta-ta. They were so fast that they were able to keep up with the speed of the flying bird. When he lifted his head again, Feng Qingyu had already soared into the sky. Then, a white horse with a pair of wings descended from the sky and caught Feng Qingyu. Thousand Horse City's Cloud Galloping Horse. The Cloud Galloping Horse was the symbol of Thousand Horse City. It was also the ultimate power of Thousand Horse City. The Cloud Galloping Horse was a unique meta beast in Thousand Horse City. It was fast and had great endurance. Moreover, it was very obedient and had a pair of wings on its back. That was its most powerful point. When he saw the Cloud Galloping Horse and the cavalry below, Yao Quan quickly ordered the giant bird to stop. If he didn't stop, he would probably collide with these people if he took another step forward. A bloody battle was inevitable. "Sorry for offending you." Yao Quan cupped his hands and said. He was here to destroy the Li family and teach them a lesson. However, the people of Thousand Horse City blocked him. It was not that simple. However, how did the people of Thousand Horse City get together with the people of Wuxia City? One should know that no forces dared to offend Thousand Horse City. Under normal circumstances, when one heard the name of Thousand Horse City, it was best to turn around and leave. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Feng Qingyu looked at Yao Quan, who was leaving, and frowned slightly. The people of Thousand Beast sect were here. This was going to be interesting. However, the Thousand Beast sect was nothing in Thousand Horse City's eyes. How many people did that kid offend outside? Sigh. Feng Qingyu gritted her teeth in anger when she thought of the kid who left without saying goodbye. She wanted to catch Li Zongjiu and give him a good beating. Chapter 291. Half an hour after Li Zongjiu and the others left, a group of people arrived. The blood-robed guards, who had been chasing after them, finally arrived. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 bronze blood strike guards carefully examined the wounds on the corpses. Decisive and decisive. There are signs of ferocious beast activity in the surroundings. It seems like the members of the Thousand Beast sect are all dead. One of the blood strike guards said in a deep voice. The corpses were clearly placed here. However, the 3 of them were experts who had the opportunity to become elders in the Thousand Beast sect in the next few years. If he was lucky, he might even be able to become a grand elder. However, they had never imagined that these people would appear. They couldn't even deal with a brat. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that they didn't even have the chance to escape. Although these beast tamers weren't strong, the various types of origin beasts were still a huge threat when they worked together. Furthermore, these experienced beasts shouldn't be so weak that they couldn't even protect their own lives. The 4 bronze blood strike guard furrowed his brows as he thought about this. I didn't expect this traitor to be together with that wanted criminal. Wudingxing Pass is right in front of us. They must have already entered the pass. Inform the guards inside the pass. We must capture them inside the pass. Yes, sir. 2 Qinggong experts immediately rushed in the direction of Wudingxing Pass. Li Zongjiu and San Tong had already entered the pass. With the reporting document in Li Zongjiu's hands and the presence of the blood mane horse, Wudingxing Pass had no reason to stop Li Zongjiu. The triple bronze blood strike guards naturally had their own exclusive document. Not only were they able to pass through Wudingxing Pass, they were also able to pass through many other places without obstruction. The Qingyuan Manor token in his hands was enough to prove everything. The killing intent of the people who passed through Wudingxing Pass was relatively heavy. Just staring at these people for a while was enough to cause a bloody disaster. Although they generally wouldn't make a move in the city, once you leave the city, they might tail you. If you wanted to hide in the city, you would first have to be able to afford it. Furthermore, if you didn't have a valid reason, you weren't allowed to stay in the pass for too long. Who knows if you're here to spy on them? After all, there are troops stationed at the pass, as well as a lot of firearms and provisions. They often transport important things. If you stay in the pass, you will have to pay them back. In this pass, there were actually people who were responsible for your every move. You couldn't tell how many people were watching you. For such an important city, it didn't matter if you usually laughed and joked around. However, if something happened, then you would really enjoy the feeling of an impending disaster. We've used up a lot of energy today. Let's stay in the pass. I'll go to the relay. Li Zhan said. Eat the pill. With your current cultivation, you can die at any moment. The 2 of them found an inn and asked for 2 rooms right next to each other. After giving some instructions, Li Zongjiu left alone. San Tong was extremely moved by Li Zongjiu's trust in him. Although she had sided with Li Zongjiu, if she wanted to harm Li Zongjiu, she would be a huge threat to Li Zongjiu. She might even leak his location and information, which would attract a large number of blood strike guards. He would bring his head back to receive a reward. That way, he wouldn't have to be chased by the blood strike guards. However, San Tong had long since grown tired of the blood strike guards' lifestyle and actions. The blood strike guards' internal strife hadn't been going on for a day or 2. Coupled with the Qingyuan Manor's actions, San Tong couldn't stand it any longer. As long as I can live, I'll risk my life for you. San Tong was already prepared to die the moment he chose to escape. Now, he had to survive for Li Zongjiu. After all, Li Zongjiu had done her a great favor. She had to repay him. Commander's office. There were 2 commanders in Wuding Victory Pass. They were in charge of the north and south gates respectively. Li Zongjiu and the others had to enter through the south gate and leave through the north gate. No matter who they were, they could only leave through these 2 gates. The commander of the south gate was Shui Zhaotian. He had 30,000 soldiers and 50,000 in reserve. These 80,000 soldiers were all under Shui Zhaotian's management. Half of the southern pass had to listen to Shui Zhaotian's whims. Within this area, he wielded great power and could cover the sky with one hand. At this moment, the person who could cover half the sky of Wuding Victory Pass with one hand. He was reading a document in his hand. "Sir, someone from Qing Yuan Manor requests an audience." Even the high and mighty Qingyuan villa would have to make a report when they arrived here. No matter how powerful they were, they could not make any waves in Wuding Victory Pass. After all, this was the military stronghold of the dynasty. It was not a place for them to joke around. Qing Yuan Manor is thousands of miles away from us. What's there to see? I won't see him. Shui Zhaotian said indifferently. Looking at the contents of the document in his hand, he could not help but frown. Insect disaster in Shiding village. Mutated locusts slaughtered a village. 27 people have died. It's so serious. Where did this insect disaster come from? In the vicinity of Wudingxing Pass, there were close to 40 to 50 villages of various sizes. The existence of these villages was for the purpose of growing food. Otherwise, with so many soldiers stationed in the pass, just the amount of rice that would be consumed every day would be unimaginable. These villages were naturally under the protection of Wuding Victory Pass. Now that a village had reported such a strange incident, of course, they had to be more careful. Otherwise, if the insect disaster spread to other places, it would cause great damage. It would cause great damage. For Shui Zhaotian, this was the most important thing. No matter who came to find him, his attitude was the same. There was no need to think too much. After being directly rejected by Shui Zhaotian, the 4 bronze blood robe guard and the others entered the pass and heard the news. They were so angry that they clapped their hands. These boorish soldiers actually dare to make things difficult for Qingyuan Villa. This was the first time that the 4 bronze blood-robed guards had been defeated. In other places, the name of Qingyuan Manor was even more useful than the name of the king of Saint Flame dynasty. If you said that you were an emperor, people might not necessarily believe you. However, if you said that you were a member of Qingyuan Manor, the door would be opened in a matter of minutes and respectfully welcomed you in. After all, Qing Yuan Manor was ruthless. For so many years, Qing Yuan Manor had killed many people to silence them. It was because of this that everyone was afraid of Qing Yuan Manor. But in Wuding Victory Pass, what kind of fierce people had they not seen before? If you have the ability, just bring it on. The 30,000 regular soldiers of the dynasty were here. They were not joking. They would let you come in alive, but not leave alive. The news of the blood robe guard entering the city also reached Shui Zhaotian's ears. After all, these people were a highly threatening group. Therefore, he had to keep an eye on them and not let anything happen. Send people to keep a close eye on these people. If they dare to make a move in the city, arrest them all. Also, who are they looking for? Shui Zhaotian asked. As half of the sky in this city, of course, he had to control everything in his hands. Otherwise, if these people messed around and he acted like an ignorant child, wouldn't people laugh their teeth off if word got out? They are looking for a defected blood robe guard and a young man from Thousand Horse City. This young man is heading to Sacred Flame Imperial City to participate in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manners assessment. A candidate? A defected blood robe guard? Interesting. This kid is participating in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manners assessment. Then he should be pretty good. Call him over. Be polite. Shui Zhaotian thought that if this kid was participating in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manners assessment, then he would definitely know how to refine pills. He would capture him and give him a try. Yes, sir. Chapter 292. Li Zongjiu wrote a letter and returned to Luoxia City. However, he had a vague feeling that he was being watched by someone. He turned around and looked around. Suddenly, he saw a few figures in front of him, who seemed to be dodging him. When he saw Li Zongjiu's gaze, it was obvious that they were hiding themselves. 4. 5. No, the other one is watching them. Li Zongjiu realized that 4 people were watching him from 4 different directions. The 5th person was monitoring the 4 people. He was obviously from another faction. Although Li Zongjiu didn't know who the other party was, since they had come knocking on his door, there was no need to be polite. He would use their heads to let them know that they had provoked someone they shouldn't have. Li Zongjiu didn't bat an eyelid. Although this was his first time here, after turning left and right, he walked into a secluded alley. Generally speaking, if there were no witnesses in this kind of alley, even if someone killed you, they wouldn't be able to find the murderer. There wouldn't even be any traces left. Even if someone found the murderer, they could just say that they didn't do it. Dead men tell no tales. After finding this place, the path was already blocked. There was no way to leave. The 4 blood strike guards immediately walked out. This alley was connected to both ends. However, the 2 people in front and behind had trapped Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu couldn't hold back the long blade in his hand. He glanced at the blood-edged blades in their hands. They were exactly the same as the one in Santong's hands. So it's you pieces of trash. Only 4 of you came. Li Zongjiu said indifferently as he clasped his hands behind his back. Of course, it wasn't just 4 people. These 4 people had sealed off Li Zongjiu's escape route, trapping Li Zongjiu in this place. At the same time, they had summoned a large army. Whoosh! 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 Dozens of figures rushed over from all directions. Several figures jumped up and down in the alley. One of them actually had the copper thread of his junior sister embroidered on the hilt of his blade. This was a 4 bronze-ranked blood-robed guard. Li Zongjiu squinted his eyes and looked at them for a while. They weren't masked, but the hats they wore were a little low, so he couldn't see their faces clearly. Now that there are so many people, are you satisfied? The 4 bronze blood-robed guard raised his head and stared at Li Zongjiu. There was a long scar on his face that extended from his forehead to his neck. At first glance, it was indeed quite frightening. They were completely surrounded by the blood strike guards. The only way to leave this place was to carve out a bloody path. Li Zongjiu took out his thunder profound hammer. This thunder profound hammer was not his, he just snatched it. Attack! The 4 bronze-ranked blood-robed guards snorted coldly. Thud! Thud! Everyone pulled out their blood-rimmed sabers. However, at this moment, a series of heavy footsteps could be heard. Knock them out of my way. If anyone dares to resist, kill them. Suddenly, a series of collisions came from the back of the crowd. A group of people in iron armor rushed out and pinned the person they bumped into against the wall. The blood strike guards were pushed down one after another. Originally, they could have fought back, but after seeing what they were wearing, they gave up on attacking. City guards. They were actually city guards. If they attacked the city guards in this pass, they would be treated as rebels and dealt with immediately. When the time came, no matter how powerful they were, they would not let them out so quickly. Furthermore, who knew if they would be protected by someone who wanted to protect them? The 4 bronze blood-robed guards' eyes widened when he saw the city guards appear. What was going on? Where did these people come from? How dare you show your weapons in my territory? Immediately, a commander wearing dark gray armor stepped forward and snatched the saber from the blood-robed guard's hand. He threw the saber to the ground and pressed the blood-robed guard and the blood-robed guard against the wall. How dare you? Don't you know who I am? The 4 bronze blood-robed guard had never imagined that something like this would happen. Did the city guards take advantage of this opportunity to catch all of them in one fell swoop? Logically speaking, this shouldn't have happened. They had never encountered such a situation anywhere else. Damn it! Are you a god? Handcuff him. Immediately, the thick and heavy dark steel shackles flew towards the body of the 4 bronze-ranked blood-strike guard and dragged him away without any explanation. The blood-robed guards, who had been overbearing just a moment ago, were all taken down by the city guards in the blink of an eye. The situation had changed so quickly that even Li Zongjio hadn't expected it. Even Li Zongjio didn't understand why these city guards would help him. If it was a fight between the two sides, then the city guards wouldn't help him. If there had been a brawl, Li Zongjio would have been arrested. However, the city guards clearly had no intention of calling out to Li Zongjio. By the time everyone had been taken away, the man in dark gray armor walked over to Li Zongjio. He cupped his fists in salute to Li Zongjio. "I am the second commander of the Southern Military Headquarters, Zhao Qing. My lord invites you to meet him at his residence." At the military headquarters, this man was the leader of the city guards. In the past, Li Zongjio wouldn't have bothered looking at these people if they had approached him like this. If they wanted to meet him, they would have had to ask their boss to come find him. However, these people's attitude was very good. They had even helped him get rid of the obstacles by capturing the blood-robed guards. They had helped Li Zongjio resolve this problem, so Li Zongjio wouldn't take advantage of them. "Lead the way." Zhao Qing couldn't help but glance at Li Zongjio, who was standing before him. Despite the presence of so many armored soldiers, Luo Yunyang didn't seem the least bit afraid. His aura didn't change at all. These soldiers weren't rookies. They were all experienced soldiers who had been on the battlefield before. If one wasn't used to grand occasions, one's imposing manner would automatically be overshadowed when facing these soldiers. The fact that Li Zongjio was able to remain so calm and composed wasn't something an ordinary young man could do. Even if one wanted to pretend, they wouldn't be able to do so. "I'm afraid that even if there were 10 times more people today, this young man wouldn't waver," Zhao Qing thought. Even if the person who had come today hadn't been him, the city guards wouldn't have been able to stop Luo Yunyang. The blood-robed guards wouldn't have been able to stop him. "Withdraw." The group of people returned to the military headquarters in a grandiose manner. The blood-robed guards hadn't made things too difficult for them. They had only been outside to teach them a profound lesson. Otherwise, these people would have thought that this was an ordinary city. Anyone who dared to act arrogantly in Wooding Victory Pass would be beaten down. Zhao Qing led Li Zongjio into the large hall. "Sir, Li Zongjio has been brought here." "Okay, you can go down first. Bring the village chief of Shiding village here too." "Yes, sir." Zhao Qing withdrew. Shui Zhaotian raised his head and looked at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio didn't stand on ceremony. He just sat down on a chair without the slightest bit of courtesy. "What's the matter?" Chapter 293. Such a daring person was either a fool or someone with real ability. Shui Zhaotian sized up Li Zongjio and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "Arrogant enough. Take a look." Shui Zhaotian threw the scrolls on the table to Li Zongjio. Shui Zhaotian wanted to let Li Zongjio do whatever he wanted. Before he knew his strength, Shui Zhaotian would let him be arrogant. If Li Zongjio did not have the corresponding ability, then Shui Zhaotian would let him know how powerful he was. Shui Zhaotian liked this kind of straightforward character very much. "Insect plague? Do you have samples of those insects?" Li Zongjio looked at the scrolls in his hand and frowned after reading them. In addition to the previous situation, this sudden insect plague seemed to have been premeditated. Therefore, Li Zongjio guessed that it was very likely related to those people. Southern Xinjiang Poison Sect. Last time, Li Zongjio had only killed a small fry. Now, these people from the southern borders poison cult were truly on the move. These people from the poison sect were obviously not strong, but they could control these insects with ease. Moreover, even a small insect could cause a great disaster. Back then, Li Zongjio directly went to ask Nan Sheng for help because of the small blood poison insect. This showed how difficult it was to deal with these insects. Now that these insects had made a comeback on such a large scale, Li Zongjiu had to stop them because it was very likely that they would be overrun. However, before he saw it, Li Zongjiu could not be sure. After all, there were many reasons that could cause this insect plague. No, but their village chief will be here soon. The village chief was not invited by them. Instead, he rushed to the pass overnight. When the incident happened, Shui Zhaotian had already sent a small team to investigate the situation. No matter what, the safety of the remaining people was the most important thing. "Sir, the village chief of Shiding village is here." Zhao Jia brought an old man over. There were some stains on the old man's body and he looked a little flustered. When he saw Shui Zhaotian, he was very excited and immediately pounced on Shui Zhaotian. "How dare you!" Zhao Kuang was about to stop him, but Shui Zhaotian waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. "Sir, you must save our village." "Get up first." Shui Zhaotian wanted to help the old man up, but the old man grabbed his hands. Shui Zhaotian's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't attack the old man directly. He believed in his own strength. This old man couldn't hurt him so easily, no matter what method he used. However, at this moment, Li Zongjiu had already made his move. Li Zongjiu stepped forward. He sent the old man flying with a single palm strike. While rolling on the ground, Li Zongjiu flicked his finger and a black flame shot towards the old man on the ground. Seeing Li Zongjiu's action, Shui Zhaotian was enraged. No matter what, these people were their bread and butter. How could he hurt them? If a soldier didn't care about the people, then what was the use of him? However, before the order to capture Li Zongjiu could come out of his mouth, he saw the old man's body gradually burning. Hundreds of black beetles emerged from the old man's body. These beetles frantically fled, trying to put out the flames on their bodies. For these insects, they were most afraid of these terrifying flames. However, no matter where they ran, there was no way to put out the flames. In the end, they were burned to ashes. Zhao Jia held his sword and stood in front of Shui Zhaotian. Although Shui Zhaotian's strength was likely to be stronger than Zhao Jia's, he still had to fulfill his duty as a guard. The two of them watched as so many insects jumped out of the village chief's body. This scene clearly shocked them. Impossible. The village chief definitely didn't die before. If he didn't die, where did these insects come from? Zhao Jia suddenly said. Thinking about it carefully, it was a little scary. How could such a thing happen? These are southern border insects. Li Zongjiu said. At this moment, a black beetle ran towards Li Zongjiu's feet. Then, Li Zongjiu caught the insect, and the flames on its body gradually extinguished. He carefully observed it for a while. He found that these insects were a type of poisonous insect from the southern border poison sect. They were called blood beetles. They lived on blood. They were born with tough armor. If they had enough blood to grow, their bodies would grow bigger and bigger. In the end, they would be able to swallow an entire cow. It was that terrifying. It sounded ordinary, but that was only if there were only one or two of them. What if there were thousands or tens of thousands of them? It would become a real army of blood beetles. Even if they ate the walls of Wudingsheng Pass, it would only take a few minutes. These are blood beetles. They live in the blood. Looks like the people in this village are all dead. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. He handed the insect over to Shui Zhaotian. Shui Zhaotian took the insect. Although there was a burnt smell, he could see that the insect was still kicking its legs. Obviously, it wanted to escape from his hands. It had such a tenacious vitality. It's the legendary goo. Who put the goo? I'm going to destroy him. Let's burn the village first. Once these insects leave the human body, they must find fresh blood and flesh within an hour. Only with fresh blood can they continue to live. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Even though he was used to seeing death in his previous life, he was still very unhappy when such a thing happened. Killing countless people did not mean that he killed the innocent. The people Li Zongjiu killed were all his enemies. They deserved to die. There were also some people he did not like. Under some circumstances, even Li Zongjiu could not bear to kill them. Therefore, Li Zongjiu hated this kind of situation where ordinary villagers were killed. However, the poison sect of Nanjiang was very secretive. It was not easy to find them. Moreover, these people liked to hide in the dark. If one was not familiar with them, or if they came to find them personally, it would be very difficult to find them. If they were hiding in the city, it would be easy to find them. However, if they were hiding in the mountains, one would have to search inch by inch to find them. How do you know so much about these insects? Xue Zhaotian stared at Li Zongjiu. He seemed to want to find a flaw in Li Zongjiu's body. Just read more books. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and said. I've already told you the method. If you don't stop it in time, it will become a disaster. Hurry up. After saying that, Li Zongjiu turned and left. His arrogance shocked Xue Zhaotian and Xue Zhaotian. My lord, should we capture him and bring him back? Zhao Zhao did not expect that things would turn out like this. That Li Zongjiu actually dared to swagger away just like that, as if he didn't put them in his eyes. What does he think this military residence is? He can come and go as he pleases. No need. Xue Zhaotian looked at the departing Li Zongjiu. Where did you say this kid came from? Xue Zhaotian looked at Zhao Zhao. His hometown is Luoxia City, but he rides a red-maned horse from Thousand Horse City. It's related to Thousand Horse City. I haven't seen such an imposing young man in a long time. Xue Zhaotian couldn't help but comment. He was obviously amazed by Li Zongjiu's performance. As long as Li Zongjiu did not do anything to endanger Wuding Xingguan, Xue Zhaotian would not cause trouble for Li Zongjiu. As for the matter of dispelling the insect plague, it was their job to begin with. Li Zongjiu had only given them a few pointers because they had captured the blood strike guards. Gather all the soldiers with fire elemental energy and lead them to Shiding village immediately. You will be in charge of leading the team and watch over the blood strike guards. Lock them up for half a month before letting them go. Yes, sir. Although Zhao Zhao did not understand why the blood strike guards had to be locked up for such a long time, he had to follow the orders. Li Zongjiu returned to the inn. He happened to see San Tong waiting in the hall. San Tong was pleasantly surprised when he saw Li Zongjiu return. Young master. Chapter 294. As for what happened in the afternoon, Li Zongjiu didn't share it with San Tong. After all, San Tong was not his friend, and there was no need to talk about these things as if nothing had happened. After resting for the night, Li Zongjiu prepared some food and wine. They set off early the next day. Li Zongjiu had thought that the blood strike guards would catch up with them early. However, he hadn't discovered any traces of them, which surprised Li Zongjiu. It seemed like their days in the city hadn't been very carefree. Whatever happened to them had nothing to do with Li Zongjiu. When they reached Sacred Flame City, they wouldn't have to worry about being hunted down anymore. After all, Sacred Flame City wasn't a place to joke around. If anyone dared to cause trouble in Sacred Flame City, their entire family would be exterminated in a matter of minutes. They wouldn't even have time to blink. 3 days later, Sacred Flame City was right in front of them. Now that they had arrived, they could finally have a good rest in the city. During the past 3 days, they hadn't encountered any problems. Only a few lost origin beasts would appear occasionally and cause trouble. However, they were all chased away by Li Zongjiu and the others in the end. San Tong, on the other hand, had felt a little strange over the past 2 days. According to the Blood Strike Guard style, they should have suffered a fierce attack before arriving at Sacred Flame City. Logically speaking, they should have caught up with them very quickly. However, they hadn't even seen a shadow of the blood strike guards during the past few days. This was very strange. Could they have gone the wrong way? Or perhaps there was an even bigger problem. Did they not have enough manpower? That was the only thing San Tong could think of right now. After all, he couldn't guess what the reason was. Inside Wuxia Pass, the dozens of blood strike guards in the prison cells were all sitting in a lotus position, feeling rather gloomy. This was all because of the calamity of being imprisoned. They had never imagined that they would be detained in the prison cells just because they had flashed their weapons. Even the people outside couldn't do anything about it. It was simply watertight. Nothing made sense. The military headquarters at Wuxia refused to let him go. Damn it. Once I get out, I'll definitely make this pair of bastards die without a burial ground. This is no longer a simple mission. It's now a personal grudge. The 4 bronze blood-robed guards wanted nothing more than to tear down the prison cell and rush out to tear Li Zongjio and the others to pieces. But he didn't have such an opportunity. Counting the time, they should have reached Holy Flame City by now. Once they reached the Holy Yen City, no matter how powerful the Qingyuan Villa was, they would not be able to do anything. Who would dare to kill people in the Holy Yen City? Even if it was a well-planned trap, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. If there was even the slightest bit of abnormality, they would directly capture the person. In front of Holy Flame City, Li Zongjio and San Tong rode their horses side by side. They looked at the majestic city before them. This sacred flame city was like a huge square seal. It was engraved here and guarded the 4 directions. The luck from the 4 seas and 8 wastelands under the heavens continuously gathered towards Holy Flame City. This was the reason why the Shengyan dynasty was so powerful and imposing. The sacred flame city alone was more than 10 times the size of an ordinary second-grade city. It could accommodate more than 10 million people. There were no less than 10 primeval forests that were enclosed within the city. There was a main city area and a forest area. Only the capital city had such a domineering aura to turn some terrifying elemental beast forests into their own backyard. The city gate of the sacred flame city was also grand. No matter which city gate it was, there were a total of 8 doors. Moreover, there was no distinction between high and low. Every day, one could see a long queue at the city gate. Fortunately, the efficiency of the front line was high. Basically, those who could make it here could be ignored by the Sacred Flame City's investigation methods. The 2 of them queued up to enter the city. The front and back of the city were packed with people. Like most places, the various large families in the Sacred Flame City were also developing with each other. The truly large clans were the few clans that held power within the empire. These people had to be kept in mind that they could not be offended at all costs. At the same time, there were also some princes here. In short, the relationship between the various factions in the city was very complicated. If one was not careful, one would fall into the abyss of eternal damnation. However, if one stood on the right side, one's meteoric rise would be just around the corner. Therefore, it was very likely that one could obtain a large pile of gold here. However, it was also possible that one would be thrown into a septic tank in the blink of an eye. Although private fights and vendettas were not allowed in the Sacred Flame City, there were some unexpected situations, such as a house accidentally catching fire, or a drunk person accidentally falling into a pool of water and drowning to death. Similar things happened frequently, so it was not strange at all. Where did you come from? The guard stopped Li Zongjio and conducted a simple interrogation. I am an examinee from the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Li Zongjio handed over the examination certificate in his hand. The information regarding Li Zongjio was written clearly on the certificate. When the guard heard this, he took the certificate and took a look. In the end, the way he looked at Li Zongjio changed. You are from the Wuxia city. I wish you good results. Go on in. Li Zongjio also felt that strength was the most important thing in the face of time. Back then, he had been able to come and go as he pleased in the Shengyan dynasty. He had even been able to enter the chambers of the emperor's concubines easily, let alone the city gates. It had been as easy as entering and exiting his own house. He had never expected that he would be in such a state when he returned. The dignified evil lord of his generation had actually been interrogated by a small city guard. Fortunately, the identity certificate in his hand had enough weight. Therefore, when he took it out, he was not put in a difficult position. At the same time, he was treated with more respect. San Tong followed beside Li Zongjio, so he naturally entered together with him. Not long after the two of them entered, a voice suddenly rang out behind them. "Hey, how are you? You are also an examinee from the Dingkuan province." "Me too. I am from the Kuan castle." A cheerful person with a slightly dark complexion could be seen. However, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. This was a confidence that came from the bottom of his heart. The Kuan castle. Li Zongjio couldn't help but frown when he heard this name. This was because this was a very famous city. So much so that the history of the Kuan castle was even longer than the history of the sacred flame city. Furthermore, the Kuan castle was different from the other cities. Although it had been included in the Shengyan dynasty's sphere of influence, the Kuan castle's city lord was still chosen by the city's headquarters. This gave off a sense of independence. However, after many years of assimilation, the Kuan castle had gradually integrated into the Shengyan dynasty. There was also quite a bit of interaction between them. Chapter 295. However, someone once said that the power of Kuan castle was even stronger than that of Holy Flame City. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had also visited Kuan castle. He discovered that Kuan castle had a long history and had many veteran experts. However, in reality, the true core strength was not as many as that of Holy Flame City. In the long run, if Kuan castle continued to remain stagnant, it would be crushed by Holy Flame City sooner or later. Now, Kuan castle was smart. It allowed people to come and learn. It allowed some of the elite disciples in the city to come and learn the essence of Holy Flame City. Those who could walk out of Kuan castle were all top-notch geniuses. However, the people of Kuan castle did not think that the world belonged to Holy Flame City. They even had the feeling that they were independent kings. However, their current strength was not enough. After about 50 years, even the strength of some of the first-rate cities in Holy Flame City would surpass Kuan castle. Li Zongjio glanced at the young man in front of him. He did not show any attitude. He turned around and left with San Tong. Li Zongjio did not say anything. San Tong naturally did not show any attitude. Not everyone could be friends with Li Zongjio. "Hey, why are you leaving?" "I'm Kuan Erasure. Remember, I'll see you during the exam." Kuan Erasure. When Li Zongjio heard this name, he could not help but be stunned. He turned around and said to Kuan Erasure, "You're Kuan Erasure." Kuan Erasure nodded when he heard this. "That's right. Have you heard of my name?" Seeing the shock on Li Zongjio's face, which even seemed to be interested in him, he could not help but be moved. He did not expect that his name had already spread here. "Ha!" Li Zongjio only sneered. Then, he turned around and left. Kuan Arashi's name exploded in this era in his previous life. It could be said that he was a legendary figure among the younger generation. At the beginning, when he walked out of Kuan castle, he directly killed his way out of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manners exam and shocked everyone. He directly obtained first place. It was even said that he crushed an extremely talented princess from the Shengyan dynasty. Therefore, it became a hot topic. At that time, Kuan castle's attitude was arrogant and extremely unconsciously. Therefore, Kuan Arashi's ending was extremely miserable. Although Kun Arashi's ambition was great and he wanted to become the hero of Kun Castle, in the end, he was too arrogant and he directly became a sacrifice. He could be considered a rather pitiful person. However, Kun Arashir at that time had no other choice. He came with the belief of Kun Castle. He wanted to make Kun Castle once again become a dazzling existence on this continent. However, this great ambition of his was not successful. However, it could be considered that he had already succeeded by half. At the very least, in the eyes of many people, Kun Arashir could be considered as a relatively successful person. At that time, Li Zongjio also greatly admired Kun Arashir. With the appearance of such a genius, in the next 20 years, he could become the mainstay of this continent and become a person standing at the peak. However, it was a pity. In this life, Li Zongjio did not think of anything else. He only wanted to properly protect Wuxia city. As for the other matters, he temporarily blocked them. Just doing the current matters was enough for Li Zongjio to be busy. The examination will start in 5 days. Let's find an inn to stay in first. In addition, I want to make a trip to the 5 Elements Yuan Tower. Yes, young master. The two of them found a relatively ordinary inn to stay in. Of course, this ordinary inn was not ordinary at all. In this small city, it could be considered as a top-notch existence. There were also many schools and martial halls in the surroundings. After all, the Shengyan dynasty's culture was martial arts. If one did not know a move or two, even if one went to the field, he would be looked down upon by others. 5 Elements Yuan Tower. It was a training building that was specially set up with a 5 Elements Yuan Qi array. It was specially set up for people to use to break through realms. If one's cultivation had reached a bottleneck that had been accumulating for many years and was preparing to break through at this moment, but was just a step away, the 5 Elements Yuan Tower would be very useful. The big boss behind the 5 Elements Yuan Tower had a great influence in the Shengyan dynasty. They even had a great background with the Imperial Martial Pavilion. Moreover, those who could set up the 5 Elements Yuan Qi array were extremely powerful Yuan Qi masters. The reason why Li Zongjio wanted to find this place was because he wanted to take out the boundless stone in his hands. These days, Li Zongjio had been training his mental energy almost all the time. With Li Zongjio's current strength, he was able to open the boundless stone. There were countless experts in the Sacred Flame Royal City. If one did not refine some skills to defend himself, he might not even have the chance to speak when he encountered a problem. The competition in the Sacred Flame Royal City was rather intense. For ordinary people, this was a place rich in resources. Here, as long as one was diligent, one would definitely not starve to death. However, for some people, this place was both a paradise and hell. If one was careless, they would be killed. Sometimes, when facing death, one would not even have the chance to leave behind one's last words. One might not even know who was the culprit. A human life could be very honorable, but it could also be very lowly. It was so lowly that even if one died, no one would know. It was worse than a dead wild dog on the side of the road. At the very least, people would mourn for the dog. Li Zongjio was not the kind of person who liked to leave his life in the hands of others. The business of the 5 Elements Yuan House was extremely busy. There were many people who could afford to use the 5 Elements Yuan House. After all, it was open to the masses. Therefore, there were rooms for all cultivation realms. One of the reasons why the 5 Elements Yuan House could make money was because many people believed that they were actually talented. Therefore, they wanted to give it a try, even if the chances were very slim. Once they succeeded, they would prove themselves and leap onto a higher stage. Therefore, even if they had to pay a huge price, they would still gather the money. This little bit of money was nothing to Li Zongjio. He directly asked for 2 secret cultivation rooms. One of them was for San Tong. Now that San Tong had thought things through, he had brought the elixir over in preparation for a breakthrough. Only then could he live better and protect Li Zongjiu better. Protect the young master. Over the past few days, San Tong had saved Li Zongjiu's life several times. Including the first time in Northern Medicine City, San Tong owed Li Zongjiu countless lives. Therefore, he had to increase his strength. Only then could he protect Li Zongjiu from the wind and rain. In the secret cultivation room, Li Zongjiu chose the fire elemental room. The reason why he chose this place was not because Li Zongjiu wanted to break through his cultivation realm, but because this place was highly confidential. The 5 Elements Yuan house could be so big and win the trust of so many people. That was because it had done a good job of keeping secrets. The information of the guests had to be kept confidential. Even if there was a breakthrough in the end, it would not be announced to the public. Therefore, only you would know what your cultivation realm was like. In the 5 Elements Yuan house, only you would know everything in the secret cultivation room. Li Zongjiu took out the meteorite. After these days of tempering, Li Zongjiu's mental energy had been twisted into an extremely hard iron chain. He used his mental energy to control the meteorite in the air. Then, Li Zongjiu's mental energy turned into a small knife. Gradually, the stone on the meteorite was peeled off easily. Bang! It was just a small piece of meteorite, but when it fell on the ground, it was as heavy as a 1,000-pound stone. Chapter 296. Li Zongjiu stared at the meteorite in his hand with rapt attention. His mind power was also constantly moving. Even the material of this meteorite was rather precious. These fragments were enough to create a weapon that could amplify one's mind power. This meteorite was a treasure from head to toe. A full 6 hours passed. The calculation method of the 5 Elemental Yuan building was very interesting. It would only calculate the amount based on the time after one had left. After all, no one could be sure what would happen during the process of a breakthrough. Perhaps one would enter a state of epiphany and cultivate in seclusion for a longer period of time. Of course, if one couldn't afford it, the 5 Elemental Yuan building had countless ways to make them pay up. This is a boundless stone. After 8 hours, a metal stone appeared in Li Zongjiu's hand. This metal stone was only the size of a fingernail, but the power it contained was enough to destroy the sacred flame royal city. This boundless stone was enough to give Li Zongjiu an advantage within the Yuan monarch realm. However, once one's cultivation base reached the Yuan monarch realm, this item would become useless. However, the invincibility of the Yuan monarch realm was enough to make many people jealous. Even though he felt the boundless stone in his hand, Li Zongjiu felt as though he had taken a stimulant. This stone is still a little ostentatious. It seems like I have to find someone to package it. Li Zongjiu thought that if he gave the boundless stone to him, he would become a corpse in less than 2 days. Given the amplification effect of the boundless stone, even a level 4 mind master would be suppressed by me. Li Zongjiu judged. A level 4 mind master was already a rather powerful existence. The Yuan inscription master who had set up the 5 Elemental Yuan building had required a level 4 mind power. This was the most basic. At this moment, Li Zongjiu took out the darkness hand bone that he had obtained from the western city's medicinal forest. Although it was only a finger, the dark energy contained within it was relatively pure. When this fellow was alive, he must have been a powerful cultivator of dark energy. He had already cultivated his elemental energy to the point where it could penetrate deep into his bone marrow. Li Zongjiu was also very impressed. However, for Li Zongjiu, it was also a great tonic. Li Zongjiu immediately used the obsidian fire to refine the darkness finger bone. Boom! As the obsidian flames danced, that hand bone actually stood firm within the obsidian fire. It was as if the obsidian fire's level of power was not enough to refine it. Interesting. This person was at least a Yuan king when he was alive. Yuan king realm. However, it was taken out by Beiho Liang. If this item belonged to one of the old ancestors of Beihou Liang's family, then Beihou Liang's family was quite powerful. However, it was impossible. Darkness essence force was extremely hard to come by. If one wanted to successfully cultivate it, it was impossible to succeed without using any special methods. As for the origin of this finger, Li Zongjiu did not pursue it. Since you are a tough nut to crack, then come and have a taste of my power. Li Zongjiu immediately took out the never-ending stone. Just by keeping it by his side, his mental strength had already increased. Subsequently, the power of the obsidian fire also increased greatly. Finally, there were signs that he would be able to refine it. Boom! When the first wisp of dark energy merged with Li Zongjiu's yuan bead, Li Zongjiu's eyes were filled with shock. This dark energy was too powerful. It was as though he had eaten an extremely powerful pill. In an instant, he went all out. In fact, he could even feel that the dark force in his body was rapidly expanding. At this rate, it is not impossible to reactivate it. Li Zongjiu felt his yuan power boiling. Subsequently, he also entered the refining stage. Under the enhancement of the never-ending stone, the power of the obsidian fire also gradually increased. 10 hours later, Li Zongjiu's body was surrounded by a pitch-black light. Even the light that was released from his eyes was a thick black color. His lips were also terrifyingly black. Trying to devour me? Li Zongjiu immediately activated his Heaven Void God record and directly suppressed the dark energy. In his previous life, Li Zongjiu White Stone relied on this Heaven Void God record to fight the 4 dragon tribe supremes. This proved that the yuan art that Li Zongjiu cultivated was also a top-notch existence. Therefore, Li Zongjiu did not give up on this yuan art. Under the Heavenly Void Divine Image record, the dark yuan power obediently retreated and fell into the yuan bead in an instant. At this moment, the restless dark yuan power that filled his body also sank into his body. Boom! Li Zongjiu felt the vibrations coming from within the yuan bead. It was like an egg that was about to break out of its shell. It was as if something was about to be released from the yuan bead. Buzz! Li Zongjiu's mind was suddenly hit by a wave of energy. When this mental energy was released, it felt as if Li Zongjiu was directly knocked unconscious. Fortunately, the never-ending stone was still there. Therefore, Li Zongjiu's mental energy was strengthened and formed a certain level of resistance. Only then was he able to receive this thought that contained enough information. He carefully read it. When Li Zongjiu opened his eyes again, he could feel the shock in his heart and the vibrating energy around him. Hell Prajna Skill. Extreme Darkness Realm. When he had first seen this name, Li Zongjiu had only casually ridiculed these people for coming up with this name. How could they be so casual? However, Li Zongjiu only realized why the Black Dragon soul had been able to survive and become the strongest existence in his previous life after he had finished reading the elemental incantation. There are 10 directions in hell, and each direction is a world. The extreme darkness realm is the first hell. This was the reason why Li Zongjiu was shocked. This was the Hell Prajna skill, the extreme darkness realm. What it cultivated was a world. Within this yuan art, if Li Zongjiu cultivated it to the peak, he would be able to open up a world within his own spiritual world. This was not the ability of a sovereign realm expert. In his previous life, as the evil lord, he had already reached the peak of the sovereign realm. However, Li Zongjiu was still very far away from creating a world. However, this yuan art of the Black Dragon sovereign actually contained the power of a world. This was the key to breaking through to the sovereign realm. 10 directions of hell. That means that there are a total of 10 of them. A ray of light flashed across Li Zongjiu's eyes. Li Zongjiu was already clear about where the second part was located. The second part of the yuan art is hidden within this heavenly dawn medicine manor. I've come to the right place. In his previous life, what had trapped Li Zongjiu was precisely the power of a world. Therefore, Li Zongjio was unable to break through. This Hell Prajna skill will be the greatest secret. I absolutely cannot let anyone know about it. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. If this news were to be leaked out, he knew how crazy those sovereigns would be. If they were to know about this Hell Prajna skill, even if they were to tear Li Zongjio to shreds, they wouldn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. In my previous life, the Black Dragon Sovereign definitely did not succeed in cultivating this extreme darkness realm. The thing that allowed him to live until now was also this Yuan art. Seems like it's not that easy to cultivate after all. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. With Li Zongjio's current comprehension ability, he was actually unable to understand the Hell Prajna skill in the slightest. Therefore, if he wanted to truly cultivate it, he would still need time to understand it. In other words, he would need to read more books. What? I've only browsed through it once, and it's already been 3 days. Li Zongjio looked at the time, and his heart was instantly shaken. Chapter 297. Even with his current mental state, he simply couldn't grasp the flow of time during the process of browsing. This could only mean that Li Zongjio wasn't suitable to cultivate this Yuan art at the moment. If one were to forcefully cultivate, one would not be able to perceive the passage of time at all. In the process, one would think that only a few days had passed outside, but in fact, a few years had passed. This was because one's cultivation level couldn't keep up. At the same time, this Yuan art was too profound, so one couldn't help but be immersed in it. Li Zongjio clearly understood the dangers of this. He temporarily stored the Hell Prajna art in the depths of his mind. He would only take it out when he had a better grasp of it. The Black Dragon's origin spirit could be considered to have been activated. As long as it continued to absorb darkness energy, it would be able to help the darkness origin spirit break through. When he came out of seclusion, San Tong had been waiting in the hall for 3 days. When he saw Li Zongjio appear, a trace of pleasant surprise flashed across his eyes. Li Zongjio had been in seclusion for 3 days. Although this was a very normal thing for cultivators, San Tong was still worried that Li Zongjio would miss the Heavenly Day Medicine Manners recruitment test. Young master. Alright, go and settle the bill. Li Zongjio casually grabbed a stack of bank notes and handed them to San Tong. San Tong probably wouldn't be able to leave during these 3 days. After all, she probably didn't have that much money on her. The only thing of value she had was the Blood Strike Guard token in her hand. Although she had already broken away from the Blood Strike Guard, the token was still very useful. Hence, San Tong had always kept it on her. After receiving the bank notes from Li Zongjio, San Tong turned around and went to settle the bill. Although this stack of banknotes was a lot, in front of that level 4 medicinal pill, it was nothing at all. Since Li Zongjio trusted her so much, she naturally had nothing to be shy about as long as she didn't disappoint Li Zongjio. You should go buy yourself a set of clothes. You've been dressed like this all day. You look so murderous. I'm going to a place. After you're done, go back to the inn and wait for me. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he turned around and left. Soon, he disappeared into the crowd. San Tong wanted to follow, but she knew that Li Zongjio didn't want her to. Change my clothes. Although San Tong wasn't wearing the Blood Strike Guard's uniform, the clothes he was wearing had a murderous vibe to them. After all, he had to live a life of fighting and killing, not a carefree life like a young lady. There was nothing he could do about it. However, Tritong was only a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old. When she saw the exquisite clothes in some clothing stores, she was very attracted to them. Plus, San Tong cultivated her origin power, so she was tall and slender. Thus, she was very suitable for wearing good-looking clothes. However, she had never tried them out before. Li Zongjio's words were like a curse that lingered in her mind. Her footsteps involuntarily moved to a spacious, bright clothing store. Li Zongjio followed the route in his memory. After nearly 4 hours, he finally found this place. It was hidden in the southwest corner of Sacred Flame City. It was an extremely dilapidated small building. He stood in front of a small, dilapidated building. Although it was very dilapidated, its exterior was still very principled. Both the sign on the door and the hammer hanging in front of the door showed that although this was a declining blacksmith shop, it was still a blacksmith shop. However, its business wasn't as prosperous as it used to be. It's still the same. Li Zongjio couldn't help but exclaim. No, it should be said that it's still the same. It's still the same. What Li Zongjio was seeing now was several decades earlier than when he had come here in his previous life. This was an extremely magical experience. It was equivalent to seeing something that happened more than a decade ago. If it weren't for Li Zongjio's strong mental strength that allowed him to understand and distinguish his current situation, he would have collapsed at will. Being reborn wasn't a simple thing. It wasn't as simple as starting everything over again. Before he entered, he could already smell the strong smell of alcohol in the courtyard. Without asking, he knew that the owner of this courtyard was an old drunkard. Excuse me, how does customizing a weapon count? Li Zongjio pushed open the door and entered. He saw an old man lying on a rattan chair in the courtyard, swaying back and forth. There were many wine jars around the chair, and the old man was lying on the rattan chair as if he was in a deep sleep. Li Zongjio asked but didn't respond. Li Zongjio knew the rules. He took out his vastness stone. The moment the vastness stone appeared, the old man who was lying down and resting suddenly jumped up from the rattan chair. What's going on? This is a gemstone with mental strength. The old man didn't look like a drunk old man who was dozens of years old at all. Ordinary methods to wake the old man up were futile. Only when the rare material was placed in front of him would the old man come up to him like a pug and shamelessly ask him to give the forging rights of the material to him. Otherwise, even if you poured diesel oil on him and placed a shiny knife on his neck, he still wouldn't help you forge a weapon. He would only help you forge a weapon if he found it to his liking. In his previous life, Li Zongjio didn't know this rule and suffered a lot. Later on, Li Zongjio also learned about it. Every time he came, he wouldn't talk nonsense. In the entire royal city, perhaps there were many people who could forge weapons. For example, the 7-star fire room. The headquarters of the 7-star fire room was in the royal city, so there must be many blacksmithing experts here. However, Li Zongjio knew what kind of people the 7-star fire room was. They were arrogant and self-righteous. Only a few of them were capable. The rest were just famous. And this place could only be known when the battle reached a certain level. Hold on, kid. How did you know I was here? The old man's turbid eyes suddenly emitted a bright light. Instantly, a terrifying murderous intent bloomed in the light as he stared at Li Zongjio. In just a moment, Li Zongjio felt as if he had fallen into a well of fire. The old man before him looked weak. However, in reality, he was a true Yuan monarch powerhouse. Logically speaking, the surrounding buildings should have been demolished and rebuilt. As the royal city, such a place shouldn't exist, as it gave people the impression that it was very backward. However, it was precisely because of the presence of a Yuan monarch powerhouse that the surrounding buildings were preserved and formed a spectacle. In the royal city, one had to be careful if they accidentally turned into a dilapidated building complex. This was because it was very likely. There was a powerhouse living here. It was precisely because this was where he had once lived that everything in the surroundings was not willing to change. Hence, it was preserved. Li Zongjio did not panic in the slightest in the face of this overwhelming aura. He merely stared at the old man before him calmly. Didn't you write on the door that this is a blacksmith shop? I just happened to pass by. If you can't forge it, then I'll have to look at other places. After saying that, Li Zongjio reached out with his hand in an attempt to retrieve the boundless stone. This action frightened the old man so much that he hurriedly smiled apologetically. Don't, sir. I don't dare boast about other things, but within a radius of 100,000 miles, there really isn't anyone with better forging skills than me. You found the right person. What do you want to forge this thing into? The old man immediately retracted his aura and gave a look that said, "You'll regret it if this thing is taken away." Chapter 298. Then you can just forge a flying dagger. Li Zongjiu thought for a while. Li Zongjiu was proficient in all of the 18 types of weapons, but he did not want to be too ostentatious. Moreover, the weapon forged by that person in his previous life was a long sword. Li Zongjiu did not want to be the same as that person. In this life, he wanted to take a different path. Damn, boss, you really know how to give me a difficult problem. You actually want me to forge a throwing knife for such a big gem. Can't you do it? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. His eyes gradually revealed a trace of disdain. This kind of disdain was what the old man could not stand the most. What was the meaning of this? This was clearly provoking him. In this world, was there anything that he, the Fire Hammer Elder, could not forge? Just you wait. You actually dare to look down on me. There are still some materials here. You can help me forge something as well. Li Zongjiu poured out all of the meteorite fragments. When they landed on the ground, they let out a heavy sound and almost caused the floor to sink. Even the blue and white tiles on the floor were easily smashed by Li Zongjiu. Oh. So it's this thing. So the meteorite that caused such a commotion in Wolffang Valley was here with you? The old man picked up a meteorite fragment and felt it between his fingers. He immediately knew the origin of this object. The way he looked at Li Zongjiu could not help but change. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. After all, he was only a blacksmith. He was only responsible for forging weapons. Alright, these materials are enough. I'll charge you a processing fee of 1 billion gold yuan. That's not expensive, right? The old man spread out his palms, indicating that this number was very fair. If an ordinary person were to hear this price, they would probably roll up their sleeves and give this old man a slap. You fucking dare to name such a price? Do you really think that this is someone else's money? Is it falling from the sky? However, Li Zongjiu knew that this price was not considered expensive. 1 billion gold yuan was only 10 million purple yuan. Li Zongjiu had just plundered a large sum of money. He casually took out 10 million purple yuan and handed it to the old man. How long will it take? 7 days. Alright, I'll come and get it in 7 days. After Li Zongjiu finished speaking, he turned around and left. Even the old man was a little surprised. Although he knew that Li Zongjiu had a good reputation in this industry, not many people knew about him. Moreover, it was rare for them to cooperate in such a trusting manner on their first meeting. This brat is a little interesting. Just who is he to be so clear about my rules? It seems that his background is not small. However, the old man quickly focused his attention on the boundless stone in his hand. The old man couldn't be blamed for being so surprised. After all, this was the first time he had met Li Zongjiu. Furthermore, Li Zongjiu had given him so many precious materials. Any one of these precious materials was worth more than a little. Then, there was so much money, and all of it was given to her. If he were to pack up and leave, Li Zongjiu would not be able to find him anywhere in the world. Even if he found him, what could he do? As long as he denied it, Li Zongjiu would not be able to do anything about it. That was how arrogant he was. However, since Li Zongjiu trusted him so much, then he had to help Li Zongjiu improve his temper. The more you trust me, the more I have to repay your trust. That's how stubborn I am. After all, the feeling of being trusted was very precious. Since he had the experience of his previous life, he naturally knew what kind of person the old man was. That was why Li Zongjiu trusted him so much. Of course, if Li Zongjiu ran away with the items, Li Zongjiu would naturally have a way to get them back. When Li Zongjiu returned to the inn, the sky was already dark. After a few days of torment, the matter was more or less settled. At the same time, he had also received the letter from the relay station. Li Zongjiu only saw the bold and powerful words that Li Tianqing had written on the paper. Everything is fine at home. If it had been a long and eloquent speech, Li Zongjiu would have immediately dropped everything and rushed back to Wuxia city. However, when he saw those words, he smiled knowingly. He kept the letter close to his body. When Li Zongjiu returned to the inn, the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Inside the inn, there was a figure sitting on a long bench, surrounded by some young masters with exaggerated expressions. One of them held a fan in his hand and wore a pair of long boots with golden threads on them. He couldn't help but drool at the corners of his mouth. "Pretty lady, what do you think? How about a drink? After you drink this cup, we brothers will leave. We definitely won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, people will say that we locals bully others. That's not good. We, the people of the Sacred Flame Royal City, are also very polite." Scram. The woman in the black dress spat out a word. However, her murderous aura instantly froze the faces of the people around her, especially the young master who was the leader. This little girl was actually so insensible to ask him to scram. If he didn't teach her a lesson, she really wouldn't know where she was. He. You're still a wild horse. Don't worry, we are all good people. You should know that my brother is the captain of the second company of the city's garrison. If you offend him, I will get my brother to throw you in jail. Once you're in prison, you won't just be serving me alone. The man's obscenities also caused the woman in black dress to become extremely angry. She did not expect that she would provoke such a thing just by changing her clothes. This group of annoying flies had to be traced back to the clothing store. She had only gone to buy a set of clothes, yet she had been pestered by these people. Helpless, she had used her movement technique to shake off these people and returned to the inn to wait for Li Zongjiu's return. However, she had been discovered by these people. If Luo Yunyang had still been a blood strike guard, San Tong would have had 100 ways to teach him a lesson. However, if he made a move now, it would most likely cause a lot of trouble for the young master. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. These people were getting more and more overboard because of this mindset. They even felt as though they were stepping on his face. When the man saw that San Tong seemed to be intimidated by his name, he actually boldly extended his hand and moved it toward San Tong's face. Just as he was about to touch San Tong's angry yet seductive face, a hand appeared out of nowhere and grabbed his 5 fingers. With a twist of the wrist, 4 of his fingers were immediately dislocated. Crack! Crack! Ah! A pained cry was heard as Li Zongjiu sent the man flying with a jolt of his origin energy. Boom! The person who fell to the ground fell flat on his face, sprawled out on all fours. The surrounding people were all shocked. Who exactly was this person? How could he be so bold? Didn't he know that the person in front of him wasn't simple? Everyone turned their heads and saw a young man standing in front of San Tong. It was this person who had thrown the young master out with a single hand. Young master. San Tong couldn't help but stand up and lower his head in shame. His original intention was not to cause trouble, but he hadn't expected that as a bodyguard, he would cause trouble for his master. What was the point of having a bodyguard like this? If something like this happens again, just throw him out. If you can't beat him, call me over. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Then, he glanced at the 2 men beside him. These 2 men were closer to Li Zongjiu. When they saw Li Zongjiu's gaze, their hearts skipped a beat. Why aren't you scramming? This shout scared all the hedonistic sons off the table. They had only come to support that person. In reality, their family backgrounds were completely inferior to that person's. You've got guts. Just you wait. The man who had been thrown out by Li Zongjio stood up, clutching his wrist. He glared fiercely at Li Zongjio. However, just as he finished speaking, he realized something was wrong. Li Zongjio took a step forward and threw a punch at his face. Boom, young Master Jiang. Young Master Jiang, are you all right? These young masters hurriedly exclaimed, but young Master Jiang had already been thrown into the opposite shop. He fell on the steps and lost consciousness. His nose was also bleeding profusely. Quick, young Master Jiang is bleeding. Chapter 299. Li Zongjio retracted his fist. Youngsters nowadays really had no regard for the law and were lawless. Kid, you'd better take your girl and hide. The Jiang family is not to be trifled with. Someone in the inn could not help but speak up after witnessing this scene. He kindly advised Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio looked at the people around him with extreme disdain. You bunch of trash. More than a dozen men just watched so many ruffians tease a girl. Go back and cut off your own hands. They're useless anyway. Li Zongjio said. His words immediately offended everyone in the inn. A few people who were not convinced directly slammed their palms on the table and stood up with a bang. Kid, what did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. Forget it, forget it. This matter shouldn't be publicized. Don't mind it. Someone quickly came forward to pull him back. It seemed that if he did not pull him back, he would really rush up and fight Li Zongjio to the death. Oh. You want to fight with me? You people bully the weak and bully the weak. Go back to your mother's womb and stay there. No one can bully you in your mother's womb. If you're not convinced, just take a step forward. See how I'll stuff you back into your mother's womb. Li Zongjio said indifferently. He looked at the person who was about to explode in rage and did not care at all. It was as if the other party was just a clown in his eyes. They were all people who came out to make a living. They did not expect that they would be provoked by such a hothead today. They really wanted to pull out their knives right now and chop this young man into 18 pieces. But on second thought, what this young man said was indeed true. Just now, so many of them were staring blankly, and none of them dared to breathe. It was because the other party was the young master of the Jiang family. Although the Jiang family was just one of the many forces in Monarch City and might not even be ranked, this was enough for them. The other party's strength was strong enough. Forget it, forget it. Let's drink. Don't make life difficult for a child. Many people felt ashamed after drinking a few mouthfuls. They immediately paid the bill and left. Of course, there were also people who stayed. Firstly, they had something to do. Secondly, they wanted to see how this Li Zongjio would end up. This matter was not so easy to resolve. The young master of the Jiang family would definitely not let this go. If he left now, he might still have a way out. However, the city guards in the city should be arriving soon. That young man's death was not to be regretted. If he couldn't even learn to swallow his anger, then he would sooner or later die under the blades of the Jianghu. If that was the case, it would be better to suffer a loss here. It was a pity for the lady beside him. Her beauty was rare even in Royal City. Many people were bewitched by San Tong's appearance. In fact, even if Li Zongjio didn't make a move, San Tong would have had countless ways to make these people pay. He would never forget the methods he had learned from the Blood Strike Guards. At the same time, he had reached the level of a Blood Strike Guard, which was already an extreme existence. The number of people he had killed over the past 10 years had piled up like a mountain. These people simply couldn't compare to him. You look pretty good in this dress. Li Zongjio couldn't help but glance at San Tong. The cold temperament that San Tong had honed wasn't something that ordinary people could compare to. Although she had changed into a long dress and this dress wasn't considered expensive, it still released the temperament of San Tong. Even Li Zongjiu rarely had the experience of bringing a lady around in his past life. Although he wasn't used to it, Li Zongjiu was a veteran, so he was very good at pretending to be calm and experienced when faced with such a situation. When he heard that Li Zongjiu didn't blame him and even praised him, San Tong couldn't help but lower his head in shame. This was a rare emotion. Was this what it meant to be shy? Even San Tong couldn't believe it. It seemed like he was becoming more and more like a normal person. "Manager, why aren't you preparing the food and wine?" Li Zongjiu shouted. The food and wine on the table were quickly prepared. "What kind of primary arts do the blood strike guards cultivate?" Li Zongjiu asked. Depending on the individual's attributes, the primary arts they cultivate are different. However, they are all zone-grade primary arts. Only the 5 bronze blood strike guards are qualified to cultivate king-grade primary arts. During the meal, Li Zongjiu learned about the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. The blood strike guards were the sharp blade of the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. Not only were they numerous, but they also had an absolute advantage in terms of quality. Even those who had just entered the sect could come into contact with zone-grade primary arts. This was a 4th-grade primary art. Many families couldn't afford it. Even some families in 3rd-grade cities couldn't afford it. For ordinary people, this 4th-grade primary art was enough to last them a lifetime. However, the blood strike guard had already started at such a high level. Given that they were willing to give up on their savings, they naturally had to work even harder. Due to San Tong's outstanding performance in the training camp, he had been rewarded with a king-grade primary art. This was why San Tong's cultivation speed had been so fast and why he had been able to fight his way out of the encirclement of the blood strike guards to become an elite existence. Although innate talent was one of the reasons, the quality of the primary art was also a key factor in determining victory. In his past life, Li Zongjiu hadn't been the one to destroy the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. At the time, Li Zongjiu hadn't been at the center of the storm either. Li Zongjiu had only been hiding deep in the mountains and forests to cultivate. Therefore, this bloody storm hadn't affected Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu wasn't clear about the strength of the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. However, in this life, Li Zongjiu would have to personally take action to deal with the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. He still had to understand some of the circumstances of the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. According to the information provided by San Tong, there were more than 5 king-grade powerhouses in the blood strike guard. Any blood strike guard with a 9 bronze cultivation was a king-grade powerhouse. This sort of powerhouse rarely made an appearance. Furthermore, they held some extremely important responsibilities in the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa. The existence of these people was the reason the Qing Yuan Mountain Villa had become such a core power. Everyone was afraid of them, so they definitely had some ability. If there are 5 king-grade powerhouses, then there must be king-grade powerhouses as well. Li Zongjiu thought to himself. While they were eating, they had been eating for almost 2 hours. The dishes on the table were more or less finished. Finally, the sound of armor clanging was heard from outside the inn. Then, a large number of soldiers rushed out. They immediately surrounded the inn. Soon, a man wearing a 3-feathered silver helmet and chainmail walked in. When anyone saw this person, they instinctively retreated to hide. This was a ruthless person. "Who hit my little brother? Get out here." Chapter 300. This roar was full of energy and profound internal energy. He was a Sky Origin Ancestor powerhouse. Even a small captain in this army was at the Sky Origin Ancestor realm. The defensive power of the Sacred Flame Royal City was too frightening. Although he was only a Grade 1 Sky Origin Ancestor. However, this was already a display of power. This man was the captain of the 2nd platoon of the South City Guard Legion. He wore a 3-feathered crown and was a Sky Origin Ancestor. Although he was asking a question, His roar was accompanied by a wave of energy that was directed at Li Zongjiu. Boom! One of the legs of the table in front of Li Zongjiu broke. However, the table was still stable and stable. Li Zongjiu did not make a move. San Tong was the first to stand up. Who are you? San Tong stood with his hands behind his back and walked over to Jiang Linjiao. When Jiang Linjiao saw the lady before him, he subconsciously took a step back. Given his strength, he was naturally different from his useless younger brother. He could tell at a glance that the lady before him was not simple. Such a person could kill his younger brother in the blink of an eye. Although her appearance was attractive, that kid must be blind. He had originally thought that she was an ignorant country bumpkin, but now he had a bad premonition. I am Jiang Linjiao, the captain of the 2nd platoon of the South City Guard Legion. Who are you? Jiang Linjiao asked cautiously. One could not be careless when doing things in Royal City. The slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. When that happened, the real tragedy would begin. Therefore, he had to get to the bottom of this. First, he had to know who the lady before him was. San Tong threw a token to Jiang Linjiao, who reached out to catch it. When he saw the words on the token, his eyes widened. He felt as though his heart was being chained up. He could not breathe and felt as though he was about to suffocate. Jiang Linjiao took a deep breath. His hands trembled as he returned the token to San Tong. My lord, please forgive us. We did not know that you were coming. Capture that kid immediately. I want to break his legs on the spot. How dare he offend my lord? Jiang Linjiao shouted behind him. There is no need for that. San Tong replied nonchalantly. All of you are dismissed. You know what to do. The Blood Strike Guard was the symbol of Qinyuan Manor. Although they were not part of the organization, the person behind Qinyuan Manor was not someone these small characters could afford to offend. Furthermore, killing a single Bloodstrike Guard was akin to making an enemy out of the entire Bloodstrike Guard. It was akin to poking a hornet's nest. The consequences would be terrifying. The Bloodstrike Guards had used their blood to carve out a bloody path. That was why everyone was so afraid of the Bloodstrike Guards. Jiang Linjiao knew the severity of the situation. Other people might be arrogant because they were officials in the royal city, but Jiang Linjiao also knew that the Jiang family had close ties with the Qin Yuan villa. Jiang Linjiao's SSS power would. Clearly, the Blood Strike Guard had entered the city on an important mission. Otherwise, he wouldn't have disguised himself like this. Jiang Linjiao heaved a sigh of relief when he heard San Tong's order. He hurriedly took his men and left. When the shift changed, he would come back in casual clothes to apologize. If this matter wasn't handled properly, the Jiang family would suffer. However, if it was handled properly, this would be an opportunity. Although the young man sitting to the side was calmer and looked younger, Jiang Linjiao could tell that the young man's temperament was more arrogant and he had a fearless attitude. To be able to have such a performance, he was definitely an important person in the Qinyuan villa. His chance had come. As Jiang Linjiao led his men away, he started to think about how he could get into Li Zongjiu's good books. The token San Tong had taken out was indeed a Blood Strike Guard identity token. There was no doubt that it was genuine. Only the inner circle of the Blood Strike Guard knew about San Tong's defection. They had never intended to let San Tong live for so long. Plus, this sort of thing couldn't be announced to all the factions. Therefore, the token was naturally authentic. When the diners who were waiting to watch the show saw the woman take out a token and scare them away, they knew that the two of them were not simple and their strength was not ordinary. No wonder that young man dared to act so arrogantly. It turns out that he has an even greater background. This is bad. Luckily, we didn't pick a fight with them. Even Jiang Linjiao is afraid of them. When Li Zongjiu had cursed them earlier, a few hot-blooded people had wanted to make a move. However, it seemed like they didn't have such thoughts anymore. They just hoped that Li Zongjiu wouldn't cause trouble for them. Getting scolded by Li Zongjiu would be fine. The reputation of the Blood Strike Guard is really big. When he saw Jiang Linjiao's frightened expression, Li Zongjiu realized that the Blood Strike Guard actually had a lot of power. Blood flows like rivers wherever the Blood Strike Guard passes, regardless of whether it's in the river east or the river north. This reputation was established in the early days. Anyone who is named by the Blood Strike Guard cannot escape. San Tong spoke softly. Although this seemed like the pride of the Blood Strike Guard, it had been accumulated through countless cruel massacres. It wasn't something worth bragging about. Besides, San Tong had already been named by the Blood Strike Guard. Therefore, San Tong knew that the only reason he was still alive was because Li Zongjiu was by his side. However, even if Li Zongjiu was there, he might not be able to protect him for long. The Blood Strike Guard hadn't caught up to him yet. Something must have gone wrong. He just had to wait for them to finish what they were doing. They would definitely catch up. Although there was no way to kill her in Royal City, there were times when one didn't have to carry a blade and walk over to kill someone. There were also countless other ways to kill someone. Even in the city, there were many powers that had been bought over by the Qingyuan mountain villa. These people were the reason for their existence. Therefore, the influence of the Blood Strike Guard was rather large. Even a mere token of the Blood Strike Guard, which was only a token of the Blood Strike Guard, could frighten the captain of the City Protection Legion to this extent. It was no wonder that a mere Blood Strike Guard had dared to order the Guard General of Wudingxing Pass to obey him with just a few words. Unfortunately, they had run into a tough nut to crack at the time. Shui Zhaotian wasn't someone to be trifled with. Most importantly, Shui Zhaotian was one of those people who feared nothing. As long as one followed the rules, everything could be discussed. As long as one didn't break the law or endanger the dynasty, everything would be fine. However, if one dared to act recklessly or even try to harm the dynasty's interests, they would be dealt with properly. Therefore, when Li Zongjiu had helped them, Shui Zhaotian had immediately given them the go-ahead. Li Zongjiu was also rewarded decisively by locking those people up for half a month. By the time they came out, Li Zongjiu would probably have already entered the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Don't worry. I will destroy the Qingyuan mountain villa sooner or later. Li Zongjiu said faintly as he released a wave of killing intent. Chapter 301. Li Zongjiu then copied a Yuan skill book and handed it to San Tong. Given your current strength, I'm afraid that you won't even be able to protect yourself in this city. Cultivate this Yuan skill properly. If you use it properly, you'll be able to kill someone of a higher level. Li Zongjiu said. San Tong opened the book in his hands. There were only 3 words written on the book. Yuan Dark Spike. After San Tong finished reading the entire cultivation method, he immediately sensed the immense power contained within this Yuan skill. Yuan Dark Spike was a top-notch assassination Yuan skill. It could increase one's strength and speed by several times in an instant, achieving the effect of a sneak attack. This move was also very suitable for his dagger. What Li Zongjiu didn't mention was that this Yuan Dark Spike had been left behind by a top-notch assassin in his previous life. At the time, this assassin had been very famous. He was also a righteous man, and the people he assassinated were all sinners. Li Zongjiu had never met this person before. He had only inherited the Yuan skill from this Yuan skill. If that was the case, he could be considered a friend of Li Zongjiu's that he had never met before. San Tong was born as a Blood Strike Guard, so he had an advantage when it came to training in this area. He was able to unleash this move from his roots and unleash a profound and far-reaching effect. This Yuan Dark Spike required one to first place oneself in the darkness. Only when one was deep in the darkness would one be able to see other dark places. Don't worry, young master. I'll practice diligently. There was only one yuan dark spike move, and it didn't have any grade. Perhaps there was one, but Li Zongjiu hadn't mentioned it. However, San Tong could tell that this move wasn't simple. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they sent the Jiang family away. Li Zongjiu also returned to his room to rest. In the Sacred Flame Royal City, there were always a few streets that were still bustling with activity even though it was late at night. It was as though this was a city that never slept. This kind of indulgence was also an opportunity to be impudent. As the examination of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor drew closer, some activities and gatherings were frequently held in the Holy Flame Royal City. This was a way to build relationships with various factions. After all, the fact that these people were able to stand out in their own provinces had already proven their strength. In addition, there were also some people who had a little reputation in this recruitment. Some young masters with unique foresight naturally had to act quickly. Golden Han Palace. Among the nightclubs in the city, it was definitely one of the top 10. One would be embarrassed to go in if they didn't spend at least 1 million gold coins a night. In a dazzling room in the Golden Han Palace, a group of young men and women were drinking and chatting merrily. There were also top-notch singers and dancers performing in the venue. Young Master Yi, this is Zhang Hexuan, young Master Zhang from the Water Jade Spirit City. Beiho Liang, who originally had an arrogant attitude, now had a respectful and humble expression before a black-cloaked man. It was so much so that when he spoke, he was very careful in fear of offending him. When young Master Yi heard Zhang Hexuan's name, a trace of light flashed across his eyes. He looked at the indifferent Zhang Hexuan. Beiho Liang quickly introduced, this is the third young master of the Yi clan from the Heavenly Flame City. Greetings, young Master Yi. Zhang Hexuan didn't put on any pretense and directly cupped his hands and said. Yi Guxing looked at Zhang Hexuan. With a wave of his hand, a beautiful maid beside him passed a cup of wine to Zhang Hexuan. The day after tomorrow is the day of the examination of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. This time, there are nearly 3,000 candidates in the 13 provinces. In the end, only one of them will be selected. What do you think your rank will be? Yi Guxing looked at Zhang Hexuan and asked. Zhang Hexuan smiled when he heard this. He extended his hand and took the wine cup that the maid passed over. I don't dare to say that in the Kuan province, no one can compete with me. In the other 12 provinces, other than the rumored disciple of the Medicine Emperor, Mo Suli, there are no more than 5 people who can defeat me. Zhang Hexuan said. These words were really arrogant. But in reality, Zhang Hexuan was still holding back. However, this was the first time they met, so there was no need to be so arrogant. Thus, he said 5 people. In reality, Zhang Hexuan didn't put anyone in his eyes. Other than the somewhat threatening Mo Suli, there was also Li Zongjiu, who he didn't know the true depth of. This Li Zongjiu, Zhang Hexuan always felt a little strange and uneasy. After all, this Li Zongjiu was able to reach such a level. Moreover, Zhang Hexuan didn't know how he did it. Thus, he temporarily included this Li Zongjiu in his consideration. He wasn't a brainless person. Now that he was able to reach this step, he had his own reasons. If he was incomparably arrogant and didn't consider anyone else, he would have been thrown into the wilderness long ago. Haha, good, good. Adding that Mo Suli, then you are at least 7th place. Come, let's toast to the future 7th place of the freshman ranking. Yi Guxing raised the wine cup in his hand. If this Sun's answer didn't satisfy him, then this Sun would probably only end up being thrown out. The Yi clan was an overlord in this city. The head of the Yi clan was half of this dynasty. He was the judge of this dynasty and the head of the Ministry of Justice. He was in charge of overseeing all the officials and all the cities. If anyone in the government committed any crimes, the head of the Yi clan would be the one to deal with them. Holding the power of life and death, how many of these civil and military officials could be clean and honest? Thus, most people had something in their hands. It was directly in the hands of Yi clan. Just based on this, how many people dared to offend them? They would be led by the nose. Therefore, the power of Yi clan was also quite great. And the reason why they had such great power was that Yi Gushing's aunt was the current emperor's most beloved concubine. Such a relationship, in addition to the Yi clan's many years of accumulation, made them even more like a crouching tiger. Zhang Heshuan and Yi Gushing drank a cup. One could imagine how heavy this cup of wine was. Even Beihou Liang was looking at the sun with envy. Strictly speaking, Beihou Liang and Yi Gushing were not friends. If they were to talk about friends, Beihou Liang wasn't at that level yet. He couldn't even enter Yi Gushing's eyes. Those young masters from first-class cities didn't even have the qualifications. You, a mere second-class city, would naturally have to queue up behind. Therefore, Beihou Liang wasn't qualified to drink with Yi Gushing. However, Zhang Heshuan drank this cup of wine. That meant that Zhang Heshuan had become a person of value in Yi Gushing's eyes. Come, sit. 2 days later, we'll see how you perform. I've placed a huge bet on you. Yi Gushing said. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Obviously, Yi Gushing wasn't someone who was easy to get along with. If you had something that he valued, then it would be better. If you didn't, then I'm sorry. Even if you were thrown into a pigsty to feed the pigs, there was nothing wrong with that. As the saying goes, accompanying a king is akin to accompanying a tiger. That was still too early to say. Even the left and right hands below were countless times more ferocious than a tiger. Zhang Heshuan naturally took a seat. However, Beihou Liang didn't have a seat. He could only stand awkwardly behind this sun. Zhang Heshuan acted as if he didn't see Beihou Liang's predicament. If Beihou Liang couldn't even handle a mere Li Zongjiu, then he was useless. How many days had passed? How many opportunities had been wasted? If this was really the case, then Beihou Liang was useless. Zhang Heshuan had overestimated Beihou Liang before. He had already hooked up with Yi Gushing, a rich young master in King City. He naturally didn't put a mere Beihou Liang in his eyes. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Along the way, there were many people who continuously toasted the sun, drinking and chatting merrily. Those who were present were all descendants of royalty and aristocrats. They held a lot of power in their hands. Although they were in King City, they could affect the world tens of thousands of miles away. That was power. With a wave of their hand, a storm would be formed. In the eyes of these young masters, human lives were nothing. They didn't need to go out of their way to recruit these people. Although Zhang Heshuan was a genius, he hadn't reached the level where they would go out of their way to recruit him. Unless Zhang Heshuan was the eldest disciple of the Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor and was ranked on the Heavenly Stellar Medicine rankings. The reason why he was playing with this Sun Crane was because he had placed a heavy bet on this Sun Crane. These young masters usually had nothing to do, so they gambled. Once there was an activity, there would be a huge bet. What they were betting on this year was the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's newcomer ranking. In the end, only 300 people were recruited. However, there were only 16 spots on the newcomer ranking. The odds were very high. Chapter 302. Early in the morning. Li Zongjiu opened his eyes. Although the boundless stone was not by his side, he was still diligently cultivating his mental strength. Because of the cultivation experience from his previous life, Li Zongjiu knew the importance of mental strength. When the Yuan spirit was attached to one's body, the degree of compatibility between the Yuan spirit and the Yuan spirit would depend on one's mind power. If one's mind power was insufficient, the compatibility between the Yuan spirit and the Yuan spirit would be very low. Because of this, the cultivation of mental strength was very important. The white god Fu had already broken through to the second level, so Li Zongjiu's mental strength had also increased rapidly. There were still some things that he needed to do today. Although Li Zongjio was confident in his own strength, this was not an ordinary place. If something were to happen, it would be best to prepare some necessary measures. When Li Zongjio opened the door, San Tong was already waiting at the door. Young master. To the 7-star fire room. In terms of familiarity with King City, Li Zongjio was much better than San Tong. San Tong rarely carried out tasks in King City. Therefore, Li Zongjio brought San Tong and went straight to King City. In the city, ordinary people were not qualified to ride horses. However, there were carriage services by the roadside. Once you got on the carriage, you only needed to pay and you could go to any place in the city. This method was also very convenient to use on the road, but it would cost some money. However, it was also because of this that King City looked more orderly. If everyone rode on colorful horses, and there were even some beasts roaming around the city, it would be very troublesome. However, the chaos caused by this was troublesome in itself. If someone was injured, it would not be so simple to define the crime. Therefore, Monarch City's decision was to prevent such a thing from happening. After an hour's journey, the two finally arrived at the largest 7-star fire room shop in the city. The 7-star firehouse was indeed rich and imposing. They had set up at least 7 or 8 shops in Royal City and the items they sold were similar. However, the items sold at the main shop were slightly different. Of course, the prices of these things were also quite expensive. In the past, when Li Zongjio was roaming the underworld, he did not have a protective yuan weapon, so he was at a disadvantage in battles with his enemies. In the past, he was poor and could not afford yuan weapons. Moreover, when he felt that he was about to die, he directly triggered the self-destruction program and destroyed the yuan weapons. Of course, this was a situation where both sides would suffer, and the fish would perish in the net. However, there were many people like this. The more precious the yuan weapons were, the more they could not let their enemies obtain them. For a lone wolf like Li Zongjio, this kind of defense mechanism was originally something he wanted to do, but in the end, he didn't get anything. This made him very unhappy. Now, it was different. Now that Li Zongjio was rich, of course, he had to equip himself well. 7-star fire room's main shop. As an illustrious existence in the Saint Flame Empire, the items in the 7-star fire room were guaranteed to be of high quality. Only they were able to forge top-grade weapons. With the help of the Yuan inscription master, it was natural that they could make some powerful Yuan weapons. Although Li Zongjio had no interest in the 7-star fire room after he became evil lord in his previous life, a truly powerful Yuan weapon had to be specially refined by someone. Otherwise, it would not be so easy to succeed. For the current Li Zongjio, some of the Yuan weapons in the 7-star fire room were enough. They walked into the main shop of the 7-star fire room. The hall alone was as big as the courtyard, and the decorations around it were also very exquisite. One could see that there were different exhibition areas, and in each area, there was a special attendant to explain and introduce the items. Some Yuan weapons were quite strange, and no one knew what kind of effect they would have. Out of curiosity, people would come forward to inquire, so sometimes, they would need someone to introduce them. Of course, there were also some prices. In the hall, in addition to many customers who stopped to look, there were also many attendants who were guiding them. Once there was a commission, it would be a very impressive figure for them. When he saw Li Zongjio and San Tong looking around, a young man knew that his chance had come. This was definitely a big order. The first thing that caught everyone's attention was San Tong. San Tong, who had changed into a long black dress, was very attractive no matter where she went. At first glance, people would think that Li Zongjio was San Tong's servant, bodyguard, or something like that. However, only people with a certain amount of experience would be able to tell at a glance. Between the two of them, Li Zongjio was the backbone, because the girl's footsteps were always behind Li Zongjio, and she was always vigilant of her surroundings. She was the beautiful girl, not Li Zongjio. To be able to hire such a beautiful girl as a bodyguard, Li Zongjio was either very rich, or his family was very rich. Such a target person was naturally the favorite of the salesman. In the aspect of yuan weapons, the water was too deep. Many flashy but impractical yuan weapons were very popular. Many people would specially pre-order some of the more powerful yuan weapons, the fresher and more popular ones, so that they could be taken out at this crucial moment to attract attention. Sometimes, when a yuan weapon was released, it would be very popular. Even if he was a salesman, he had to find the right position. That young man's gaze was sharp and venomous. Some of the more glamorous yuan tools were placed there, yet he did not even look at them. He merely swept his gaze across them, as if he did not care about the ordinary goods here at all. Just this point alone was enough to confirm that he was not looking for ordinary yuan tools. "Young master, I am a salesman of this shop, but the yuan weapons here do not meet your requirements." The young man was not very old, looking like he was in his 20s. However, his eyes were somewhat sharp, and it was obvious that this young man had been here for a long time. "Do you have weapons with strong killing power?" Li Zongjio asked directly, without much nonsense. He was here to buy things, not to chat and show off. "Yes, of course. Our 7-star fire room is best at killing weapons, but those kinds of weapons are not on display here. Please follow me," the young man said, and then led Li Zongjio to the second floor. There were relatively fewer people on the second floor because the price alone was 10 times higher than the price on the first floor. Many people did not even dare to look at it. This is the second floor of the 7-star fire room. If you want weapons with strong killing power, you can take a look at these. Divine Fire Thunder, Level 3 Yuan Weapon. Once it is triggered by yuan power, it can create a yuan qi explosion effect within a radius of 50 meters. At the same time, it can release the power of fire with a burning effect. If it is thrown into the army camp, just one of it is enough to severely damage a camp. Most importantly, it is only the size of a palm. Chapter 303. This godly thunderbolt was indeed very convenient and powerful. However, this was a one-time consumable yuan item. The array engravings on it, as well as some burning materials, made the power of this divine thunderbolt unquestionable. It wasn't expensive either. 5 million gold yuan. Li Zongjio didn't say anything. His expression didn't change either. San Tong's eyes lit up when he saw the divine thunderbolt. He had clearly witnessed the might of the divine thunderfire bomb. Back when he had been carrying out a mission outside, it had been a sure-kill mission. However, the other party had been prepared to fight to the death, so this divine thunderfire bomb had been thrown into the Bloodstrike Guards camp. At the time, this divine thunderbolt had caused a lot of damage. That time, San Tong had come into close contact with death. If he could get his hands on a godly thunderbolt, then he would be relatively safe. However, 7 million gold coins wasn't a small amount. Moreover, it was a one-time consumable item. Most of the time, it wasn't worth it. When he saw that Li Zongjio's expression didn't change, his heart skipped a beat. It seemed like this young man wasn't simple. Even the divine thunderbolt was nothing to him. He immediately led Li Zongjio down the path. The Big Dipper 5 Thunder Box. Inside the box are 5 Heavenly Dipper lightning pearls. As long as you use your elemental energy to trigger them, you will be able to release these 5 Heavenly Dipper lightning pearls. It will cover an area of 100 meters. Even if it is our Holy Flame City's city gate, under a single attack from this Heavenly Dipper lightning chest, half of it will collapse. The recommender said. The Big Dipper 5 Thunder Box in his hand had a metallic color flowing through it. There were also dragon engravings on the front and back of the box. It had to be said that the 7-star flame room possessed so much powerful yuan power that it should have been outlawed by an empire. However, the 7-star flame room hadn't declined. Instead, it had become more and more popular. What was the reason? Firstly, the usage of these yuan tools required the support of a powerful yuan power behind them. In order to withstand the attack of the yuan item, one needed a powerful yuan power. Li Zongjiu remained unmoved. This time, it was the recommender's turn to be shocked. It seemed that such ordinary goods would not be able to enter Li Zongjiu's eyes. That box of Heavenly Dipper 5 Thunder chest was sold for 10 million gold coins. In terms of level, he was at level 3.5. If you're still not satisfied, please come this way. The recommender led Li Zongjiu and San Tong into a corridor. There were things displayed on both sides of the corridor. These things could only be seen but could not be touched. Many people stopped to look at these things. He stared at the thing in front of him. Many people were also pointing and discussing animatedly because this place could be called the masterpiece of a madman. Everything in this corridor was powerful, but sometimes they were also extremely unstable. Some things had strange effects, and there were all kinds of situations. However, these things all came from the hands of a level 5 origin inscription master. Any item that was personally forged by a level 5 grandmaster was an earth-shattering existence. Now, it was placed here as an exhibition. When Li Zongjiu arrived at the corridor, he saw something. The black bat sword. A long black sword hung in the display window. There was nothing special about the sword's appearance, but there was a unique space inside the sword. Millions of black bats were captured in the black bat sword. Moreover, they could survive well in the space inside the sword. Li Zongjiu had taken a fancy to the black bat sword not because he had great power and could release millions of bats in an instant, but because there was a small world inside the sword. Although this world might not be complete, at the very least, this sealed bat could survive in it. This was a very important point. Therefore, Li Zongjiu wanted to buy the black bat sword. However, the black bat sword wasn't that useful. Many people didn't understand why such a simple black bat sword would cost 50 million gold coins. The black bat sword itself did not have any power. Release millions of bats. What was the use of that? If it was used to attack, it would be burned to a crisp. If he used it to escape, as a cover, or to cover his figure, he would also be like a fire that would burn him to ashes in a matter of minutes. There was no use at all. Unless one had a special hobby and liked to play with bats, then it could be kept. 50 million gold coins could be used to buy anything, but why did one have to buy such a useless sword? However, in Li Zongjiu's eyes, this sword was completely different. One had to know that the sword itself was not very powerful, but it could open up a small world. To Li Zongjiu, this kind of enlightenment was very precious. As for how to cultivate in the extreme black realm, he might be able to find some clues and ideas from it. This sword, I want it. Li Zongjiu pointed at the black bat sword and said. Also, wrap up the divine thunder fire in the Heavenly Dipper 5 thunder box for me. Li Zongjiu said directly. The person who recommended him was still in a daze. What was the meaning of this? Was he going to place an order just like that? Wasn't this too simple? He didn't even mention the price or ask before placing an order just like that. Such a forthright customer was simply a living Buddha. This was a rare opportunity, and it was an order of 10 million. It was simply too good to be true. These things were quickly prepared for Li Zongjiu. The person who recommended him followed Li Zongjiu's footsteps. However, Li Zongjiu seemed to be even more familiar with these things than he was. After casually ordering a few things, Li Zongjiu clapped his hands and placed his order. The things he had just selected were all from the 7-star fire room. They were currently in the experimental stage. Generally speaking, these things were more practical and risky. Sometimes, they might even be life-threatening. However, Li Zongjiu did not think too much about it. He looked like he was looking for some cheap goods, but in fact, he had a very good eye. Wear this set of sky heart armor yourself. There is a set of sky heart formation inside. It is enough to help you block a killing move. However, you probably won't be able to escape the next move. You'll just be able to live a little longer. Li Zongjiu said. He was obviously concerned about her, but his words sounded like he was going to a funeral. San Tong nodded and took it. She did not know why Li Zongjiu was so good to her. This was really a little flattering. However, San Tong also knew her mission. The inner armor on the young master's body was not the last line of defense. The last line of defense on the young master's body was her. Therefore, San Tong put on the sky heart armor to help Li Zongjiu block one more attack. Oh, isn't this young master Li Zongjiu? You have a girl with you. Could it be that young master Li came this time to sightsee? Li Zongjiu had just paid the bill. He had spent a total of nearly 100 million gold coins. It seemed that the money was not very good. It had not been long, but it was almost used up. It had not even been a month. Chapter 304. A few youngsters were walking towards them. The one walking at the front was the Sun Crane. At this moment, Beiho Liang was already walking behind the Sun Crane. The change in status was rather fast. No one would have thought that the Sun Crane would climb up so fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already standing above Beiho Liang. Beiho Liang was also helpless. Who asked this kid to be so lucky to be chosen by that young Master Yi, who even bet heavily on the Sun Crane? When these young masters bet, it was not so simple. They could easily bet tens of millions of purple yuan. However, the biggest prize was not these gold and silver treasures, but some extremely precious items. That Yi Gushing obviously had something very important to bet, which was why he was so interested in the Sun Crane. He also took care of the Sun Crane. He even specially asked someone to bring the Sun Crane to the 7 Stars Fire Room to buy some defensive items. After all, the contents of the Heavenly Day Medicine Manners examination were also very strange. Who knows, they might throw you into some dangerous place to gain experience. Therefore, it would not be wrong to prepare more items. You guys still don't know him, right? This is also someone from our Dingkuan province. He is mediocre, but I don't know what method he used to become the first in Dingkuan province. Li Zongjiu, your method is indeed brilliant. Even I can't see through it. Li Zongjiu's matter, in fact, those who slightly investigated it knew about it. However, they did not care about it at all. It was obvious that Li Zongjiu was the one behind it. No one knew what method he used to make the 5-colored soft intestine flower bloom. Just last night, young Master Yi Gushing also commented on this matter, saying that it was impossible. Therefore, Li Zongjiu clearly used some method. It was understandable that he used some method. However, when he was exposed, he should at least have some sense of shame. You're that Li Zongjiu. You're pretty good. Cheating and cheating. You country bumpkins are better at it. Ahahaha. A young master also agreed with the Sun. Zhang Heshuan was now a popular person. At least before he failed, he would be popular. However, if you fail, it would be a different story. Even those people who were laughing and supporting you behind your back would not be able to stop themselves from coming over and stabbing you personally. But now, they naturally stood on Zhang Heshuan's side. As for Li Zongjiu, they naturally wanted to damage him as much as possible. They wanted to increase the momentum of their side. San Tong looked at these people who had come to provoke him and couldn't help but take a step forward. It seemed like he wanted to draw his sword for Li Zongjiu. However, when those young masters saw the 3 copper coins, their eyes lit up. They had seen many beautiful women and played with many of them. However, when they saw a woman like San Tong who was filled with a heroic spirit that didn't lose to a man, they couldn't help but be attracted to her. Such a woman was truly rare in this world. Oh, this lady is really pretty. Even in the Red Moon House, she would definitely be one of the top beauties. Another young master who looked like he had been drinking too much walked forward. He couldn't help but drool as he looked at San Tong's figure. He couldn't help but want to touch her body. San Tong was a little angry, but he didn't make a move. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Who allowed you to swallow your anger? If someone insults you, that's the same as insulting me. Li Zongjio said indifferently. As soon as he said that, San Tong's eyes lit up. He had already given San Tong permission. It was time for him to make a move. He could no longer tolerate the filthy words of these people. At this moment, when he heard Li Zongjio's words, he did not hesitate at all. He directly took a step forward and rushed towards the drunken man. Oh, this chick has a temper. All of you, go away. No one is allowed to help. The drunken man chuckled when he saw this. This was a good opportunity. Although he looked sallow and emaciated, it was because his strength was too strong. He had no choice but to release it. Otherwise, this constantly increasing strength would destroy his body. When it came to fighting, he was not afraid at all. However, powerful Yuan energy didn't mean powerful combat strength. The man's Yuan energy had already reached the ancestor level and had even merged with his Yuan spirit energy. However, in front of San Tong, he twisted the man's arm and slammed him down. Crack! The man's entire arm was twisted and broken. Ah! Under the intense pain, Wine Prince was enraged. His eyes flashed with a ferocious glint, and his aura rose rapidly. A terrifying force was gathering in his body. This was the Yuan spirit energy. Bang! San Tong hit the drunken man's head with his elbow. In an instant, the drunken man's aura disappeared and he fainted. The drunken man couldn't resist such a powerful attack. San Tong knocked him down in 2 moves. The others naturally didn't agree, but they weren't in a hurry. Instead, they mocked the drunken man. This kid must have used up all his strength last night. Didn't he say that the fiercer he is at night, the fiercer he will be during the day? What a coward. But, chick, you injured our brother. I'm afraid you'll have to come back with us and give us an explanation. As they spoke, the remaining 3 stepped forward. Except for the Crane Sun, everyone else stepped forward. San Tong didn't panic at all. If this had happened on the battlefield, the 4 of them would have been beheaded. His many years of experience in killing people was not just for show. However, San Tong couldn't kill them now. Stop! Do you all want to go to jail? How dare you behave so atrociously in my 7-star fire room? Just as San Tong was about to attack, another cold voice came from afar. Li Zongjio couldn't help but look in the direction of the voice. He saw a woman dressed in white with a thick book in her hands. She seemed to have been disturbed while she was doing something. Seeing the appearance of this woman, the person who had received Li Zongjio earlier hurriedly stepped forward. Eldest Mississippi, eldest Miss. The appearance of the white-clothed woman also made the young masters of the wealthy families somewhat uncomfortable. In this city, there weren't many people who could deal with these rich young masters. The woman in white in front of them was one of them. Her identity wasn't simple. She was the daughter of the big boss of the 7-star fire room. She was also the main manager of the room. She was only 20 years old, but she had already surpassed countless tycoons in business. She had a lot of wealth. Even if she tapped her fingers twice, it was more than what these people had. Naturally, she didn't put these people in her eyes. Chapter 305. The Young Lady of the 7-Star Fire Chamber. Li Zongjio looked over and saw that the white-clothed lady's eyes were clear and bright. When she saw the young masters in front of her, she didn't have the slightest fluctuation. Instead, when the young masters saw her, they were like mice that saw a cat. One by one, they shrank back. Only one of them was brave enough to take a step forward. Then, he said to the white-clothed lady. "Young Lady Song, this time, we didn't come here to cause trouble. They started it first. Some of our people were knocked unconscious. That person couldn't help but say. Now, there were indeed some of their people who were knocked out." The white-clothed lady glanced at San Tong. She knew that young Master Jose. Although his ability wasn't great, it wasn't bad either. At the very least, he was one of the better ones among this group of good-for-nothings. After being hit by a woman, you still have the face to complain. You still want to bully me with your numbers. All of you, get out of here. Otherwise, I'll throw you out. The white-clothed lady said indifferently. The young masters all quieted down and stopped being so arrogant. They were familiar with the lady's temper and knew that if they didn't leave quickly, they would really be thrown out. "Brat, just you wait." After saying those words, he dragged the person on the ground and left. Li Zongjiu glanced at the leaving Zhang Heshuan and frowned. This brat seemed to like to cause trouble. Some of the previous incidents were caused by this brat. "Since you're always looking for trouble, I'll deal with you tonight." With a thought, a mental power suddenly fell on Zhang Heshuan's body. This mental power was very hidden, even Zhang Heshuan himself didn't notice it. Zhang Heshuan and the others were driven away. Song Jieyu looked at Li Zongjiu and San Tong and put away the thick book in her hand. "Our 7-star fire room has not received you well. As for the disturbance caused by those people, our 7-star fire room is willing to give you a set of thunderous short arrows as compensation. What do you think?" As she spoke, a cloth bag appeared in Song Jieyu's hand. There were 6 pitch-black arrows hidden in this set. The reason why it was called the thunderous short arrow was because when it was triggered, it was akin to a sonic boom. In fact, the sudden burst of speed could even surpass the sound of thunder. It had to be said that this was a set of weapons that could kill people in an instant. If it was a very short distance, even if the opponent was prepared, there was no way to escape under the short arrow. This is a treasure-level origin item. The entire 7 Stars Fire Room has only produced 13 sets of these thunderous short arrows because of the limited materials. When the recommender saw the set of thunderous short arrows, he was so shocked that his mouth fell open. He never thought that the young miss would offer such a high compensation. Although they were disturbed, they only needed to give some symbolic discount cards. There was no need to pay such a high price. This immediately caused everyone to be somewhat surprised. A treasure-grade origin tool was basically the work of a master who had reached the peak of perfection. Generally speaking, this kind of work would not be sold a second time. Many people spent a sky-high price to buy it, not to use it, but to collect it. The fetishes of the rich were unfathomable. Not only that, but the set in Song Jieyu's hands was even more powerful. The materials used to make it were also the best of the best. Someone had once offered 4 million purple yuan, but this set of thunderous short arrows still hadn't been sold. Now, Li Zongjiu and the others had only been slightly disturbed in the 7 Stars Fire Room. They had not suffered much, but they had directly taken away a set of thunderous short arrows worth 4 million purple yuan. It was almost equivalent to making up for Li Zongjiu's expenses today and making a big profit. Who would not be willing to accept such a good deal? Take it. You can keep it. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. It could be seen that San Tong was very fond of this set of thunderous short arrows. This was a divine tool that could almost hit the target at close range. If one day San Tong was really forced to use this set of thunderous short arrows on the enemy, then it would be too late for regrets. When San Tong heard Li Zongjiu's words, he immediately stepped forward and took the set of arrows, forcibly suppressing the joy in his heart. Song Jieyu looked at the pair of master and servant very curiously. Although the value of the thunderous short arrow wasn't that high, the fact that he had given it to the bodyguard beside him meant that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary. At the very least, Li Zongjiu had absolute trust in San Tong. Let's go. Li Zongjiu said. He did not say anything else. Was Li Zongjiu supposed to thank him? If it was Li Zongjiu's previous identity, if someone came to cause trouble while he was shopping in your shop, Li Zongjiu would tear down your shop in a matter of minutes. You would have to compensate until you went bankrupt. He directly let it go because Li Zongjiu's temper had become better. King City is different from other places. You have to be careful in everything you do. Just as Li Zongjiu walked past Song Jieyu suddenly said such irrelevant words. San Tong thought that Song Jieyu was talking about the grudge between Li Zongjiu and Zhang Hexuan and the others. But Li Zongjiu knew. Song Jieyu had already discovered his spiritual tracing imprint when he had placed it on her. It seemed that Song Jieyu's strength was also deeply hidden. Li Zongjiu could not see through Song Jieyu's strength at a glance. Even the aura of her yuan power was extremely weak. This meant that Song Jieyu had a yuan weapon that could conceal her aura. As the biggest yuan equipment merchant here, it was not strange for him to have a few of these defensive gadgets in his hands. I don't know where this madman came from. Song Jieyu muttered in her heart. Her kind reminder had already been conveyed. Then, she called the guard in charge of the 7-star fire room over and gave him a good scolding. As the guard of the 7-star fire room, he was unable to prevent such a conflict from happening. If she had not appeared just now, it would have turned into a chaotic battle. In the end, the 7-star fire room would be the one to suffer. They had offended both sides, and the business would not be able to continue. Therefore, the guard's responsibility was very important. Today's scolding was to make them remember. Then, Li Zongjiu and San Tong also strolled around nearby. After buying so many yuan weapons today, Li Zongjiu only took away the black bat sword. The rest of the items were left with San Tong. There was only one day left until the Heavenly Day Medicine Manners assessment began. Nearly 3,000 geniuses from the 12 prefectures would eventually participate in this competition. Presumably, some of the extremely confident people were also making their final preparations. Night fell. San Tong and Li Zongjiu were both cultivating in their own rooms. San Tong had heard of Li Zongjiu's legend. The Yuan Dark Spike needed to be continuously trained and honed before it could unleash its terrifying power. Li Zongjiu's room, on the other hand, was empty except for a burning candle. Chapter 306. In the northwest corner of the city, near the center, there was a restaurant that was named the Royal High Class Restaurant. For such a restaurant to have such a name, it was extraordinary. Aside from its deep background, the Emperor of the Purple Mansion dynasty had once been a guest here. Later on, the restaurant became famous and was even named the Royal High Class Restaurant. If one wanted to stay in this restaurant, money alone was not enough. In a guest room on the 18th floor, Zhang Hexuan sat cross-legged on the bed. For cultivators like him, the bed seemed to be a place for cultivation and not a place for sleeping. Although Zhang Hexuan looked like a person who ate, drank and played, in reality, it was far from enough to rely on his talent. Behind others' backs, Zhang Hexuan's hard work was unmatched by ordinary people. Ever since he discovered his innate talent, he had never slept a single night. Whenever night fell, it would be time for him to cultivate. Cultivating the pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra and pill refining mantra. The entire Royal High Class Restaurant emitted a dazzling light at night, as if it had become one of the most dazzling jewels in Royal City. There was no need to doubt the safety of this place. There were a total of 3 Peak Sky Origin Ancestor level powerhouses taking turns to guard the restaurant. Any threat that approached would be discovered instantly. Most importantly, with such a huge signboard here, who would dare to rush into the royal family restaurant to kill people? Although Yi Guxing arranged for me to stay here, it seems like he is treating me well, but more importantly, he is putting me under house arrest. Zhang Hexuan sneered in his heart. Talent was one thing, fate was another. Although he had talent, he was not as good as Ye Gushing, who had a better fate. In order to make himself a pawn in Ye Gushing's hand, in order to prevent others from coming into contact with Zhang Heshuan, Ye Gushing had arranged for him to stay here the moment he entered the city. He had even arranged for the nobles to follow him every day. Even if Zhang Heshuan was helpless, he was only fit to be a pawn in Ye Gushing's gambling game. Zhang Heshuan was not willing to become such a pessimistic person. Tomorrow was the day of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's assessment. Once he passed, he would definitely become a man above others. At the very least, no one would be able to dictate his life and death. I must carve out a path of blood. No one can stop me from reaching the peak. Zhang Heshuan's eyes were sharp. At this moment, his aura had also soared. At this moment, the candle flame on the table suddenly flickered. Zhang Heshuan couldn't help but look over, but he happened to see a figure under the candlelight. Who is it? Zhang Heshuan, who was instantly alert, immediately shouted. At the same time, a dangerous aura instantly spread from his back to the back of his head. Intuition told Zhang Heshuan that someone was coming. It was the danger of jealousy. The newcomer sat down in front of the table. Even the carpet is made of white tiger skin. He sure knows how to enjoy himself. Li Zongjiu said calmly. Not only that, but the wine on the table was also a century-old vintage. Just a single night's worth of consumption in a room like this was enough for a Yuan general-grade powerhouse to earn over a decade. It's you. Zhang Heshuan saw clearly that it was actually Li Zongjiu. To be honest, Zhang Heshuan didn't think that Li Zongjiu was a threat. In fact, he didn't even put Li Zongjiu in his eyes. This was because Zhang Heshuan was confident in his own strength. Although I don't know how you sneaked in, you'd better get out of here. This kind of place isn't for someone like you to casually enter. Zhang Heshuan walked down from the bed, but he still stood by the bed and said to Li Zongjiu calmly. At this moment, Zhang Heshuan was also thinking about how Li Zongjiu knew his whereabouts and where he stayed. Could it be that Ye Gushing revealed it? You're quite an interesting person. Are you going to write a will? Li Zongjiu asked. When he heard Li Zongjiu's words, Zhang Heshuan couldn't help but laugh heartily. Ha ha. Li Zongjiu, do you really think that this is some rural place? Do you really think that you can kill me? You think you can? Zhang Heshuan said disdainfully. However, although Zhang Heshuan didn't believe that Li Zongjiu would dare make a move, he still took a step forward and walked in the direction of the door. No one knew what would happen in the face of such a lunatic. However, Zhang Heshuan was still extremely calm on the surface. This is a high-class restaurant of the royal family. There will always be a peak Yuan ancestor powerhouse overseeing this place. Killing someone here is tantamount to walking right into a trap. Now, I'm going to call someone to chase you out. As he said that, Zhang Heshuan's body flashed and he was about to press a button on the wall. However, he realized that Li Zongjiu had appeared beside him without him noticing. Furthermore, he seemed to be holding something in his hand that suddenly fell towards his arm. Bang! When Zhang Heshuan was hit, he knew what Li Zongjiu was holding in his hand. Mysterious lightning hammer. Bang! Zhang Heshuan's entire body smashed onto the floor. When the mysterious lightning hammer fell on his arm, it had already broken. Li Zongjiu, you're courting death. Zhang Heshuan roared at Li Zongjiu as he circulated the weak Yuan power in his body. Li Zongjiu stepped forward once again. With a bang, the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand fell on the head of the Sun. Grade 9 Yuan Master. Can you be any more trashy? He had never imagined that he would have to assassinate such a person. For Li Zongjiu, this was indeed a disgrace. However, Li Zongjiu didn't want it. Something uncertain might happen in the future. Hence, before this Sun became a threat, he would just directly eliminate it. Perhaps in the eyes of others, this was a very simple competition between geniuses. However, Li Zongjiu actually used such an assassination method. It was really ungentlemanly and unrestrained. Li Zongjiu wanted to say that. Yes, I am ungentlemanly and unrestrained. Even if I want to kill you, what can you do? If you have the ability, then stand up again. With another hammer strike, Li Zongjiu made sure that the Sun Crane's head was completely shattered. Li Zongjiu grabbed the corpse of the Sun Crane and threw it out of the window. After a few seconds, a loud bang resounded at the entrance of the royal restaurant. It alarmed the entire defense system of the imperial restaurant. Soon, a few men in black directly descended from the sky and landed in front of the corpse. When they saw the corpse, one of them suddenly widened his eyes. Oh no! The Yi family's third young master repeatedly warned them to keep an eye on this person. However, they didn't expect that this person would fall from the restaurant on his own accord. It's not suicide. He was killed by a hammer. The murderer is still nearby. Search for him. One of the older men said after observing for a while. There was actually someone who dared to directly attack, openly committing murder in front of the imperial restaurant in Royal City. If such a big matter were to spread, who would dare to stay in the imperial restaurant in the future? Just as the experts of the imperial restaurant were scattered in all directions to search for the suspicious person, Li Zongjiu, who was dressed in black, disappeared into the night. Before becoming an evil lord and an alchemy saint, Li Zongjiu was best at killing people. If he could kill, then he would face them head-on. If he couldn't, then he would poison them from behind and use underhanded methods. Assassination? It was a common occurrence. Zhang Heshuan's body was smashed into pieces. A few seconds ago, Zhang Heshuan was still full of ambition, and a promising future. He even directly said that he wanted to be ranked 7th on the newcomer ranking, or even higher. However, at this moment, it was a solid, cold corpse. Even the imperial restaurant, in order to suppress this matter, directly hid the corpse of the Sun and didn't announce the death of the Sun to the public. However, the news of Zhang Heshuan's death immediately reached Yi Guxing's ears. Chapter 307. You really have guts, daring to kill people in the imperial restaurant. Yi Guxing sneered when he heard the news. Now that Zhang Heshuan was dead, all the money he had bet would go down the drain. All these things would belong to someone else. In a gambling game like this, such things would happen from time to time. That was why Yi Guxing had arranged for Zhang Heshuan to stay in the royal restaurant. At the very least, this was his territory and it would be absolutely safe. Even so, he had still been killed by someone. Investigate. I don't care who is behind this, but you must find the culprit. Even if we have to turn Royal City upside down, we must find the culprit. Yi Guxing shouted angrily, and his subordinates hurried to carry out his orders. Good, the few of you. How dare you use such despicable means? You'd better not let me find any clues. Yi Guxing's eyes shone with a cold light. At their level, the competition between young masters was even more intense. Anything could happen. For example, the maid who had been serving you for so many years was actually a spy sent by them. That would not be strange at all. If you revealed even the slightest flaw, it would be very likely that you would be caught by the other party and killed. In a confrontation of such a level, it would be extremely dangerous to have even the slightest clue. Logically speaking, they wouldn't do such a thing, because it was extremely stupid. Yi Guxing, who had calmed down, was also thinking. However, he was sure that these people couldn't be behind this matter. Otherwise, no one would dare to be so bold. To kill someone in the royal restaurant openly. The one who had done it must be a peak sky origin ancestor assassin, or even stronger. To be able to mobilize an assassin of such a level, the Rain Tower must be involved. Go to the Rain Tower and investigate immediately. Find out who is behind this. Yes, young master. Yi Guxing's blood vessels were about to burst. He couldn't believe that such a thing had happened. Just as Yi Guxing and the Imperial Family Restaurant were in a terrible fix, a voice suddenly rang out. Li Zongjiu, who had done such an earth-shattering thing, returned to his own inn like an ordinary person. He blew out the candles on the table. The next morning, Li Zongjiu had also arrived at the entrance of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's Academy early in the morning with the examination papers in his hands. The Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor was located in a primitive area in the southern district. One could still see some streets and streams of people at the front of the Medicine Manor. However, behind the Medicine Manor, there was an endless mountain range and an even wider medicinal forest. Among the 3,000-plus candidates who had rushed over from various places, there were also some of the top geniuses who had emerged from the various prefectures and cities. With so many geniuses gathered in this place, there was naturally a kind of vigorous spirit. However, there was more of a feeling of competition between each other. Feeling so many extraordinary spirits gathered in this place was a kind of symbol of prosperity. If the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor were to randomly select a few people, it would be enough to nurture some top-notch talents. Moreover, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was selected from so many people. It was precisely because of such a steady stream of talents that the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was able to achieve its current glory. Li Zongjiu allowed San Tong to move freely. With so many defensive yuan weapons, it was basically impossible for him to die under normal circumstances. Moreover, in Royal City, there were not many people who could be as daring as Li Zongjiu to directly kill people. After all, such people were in the minority today. At this moment, everyone had gathered in the front hall of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. The examination papers had already been submitted. Only by submitting the examination papers would one be able to enter the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. This place was called the Outer Medicine Manor. Li Zongjiu, like many others, stood in a shady area and waited. Li Zongjiu. Just as Li Zongjiu was waiting, a voice suddenly called out to him. When he turned his head, he happened to see a woman in a yellow robe approaching. Although her clothes were brightly colored, the expression on her face was still cold. It seemed that no one could approach her. Once they did, they would definitely be injured by the cold air on her body. "It's you." Li Zongjiu recognized the person in front of him, but he had forgotten her name. This person was one of the winners in the Black North Mega City, Yao Lei. Compared to Zhang Hemang, Yao Lei's talent was definitely not just a little bit worse. The reason why Yao Lei was brought here was most likely just to make up the numbers, not to say that Yao Lei was really talented. Among the nearly 3,000 people present, at least 2,000 people were more outstanding than Yao Lei. Yao Lei was also clear in her heart, so she felt a little nervous at this moment. One must know that in the Black North Mega City, Yao Lei's talent was definitely top-notch. However, at this moment, she was at the level of a passerby. Almost everyone's aura was stronger than hers. Seeing so many experts gathered here made Yao Lei nervous. Therefore, when she saw Li Zongjiu, she could not help but shout out. Compared to the Sun, Li Zongjiu was more familiar with this Li Zongjiu. What a coincidence! After Yao Lei approached Li Zongjiu, she felt a little more relaxed. Everyone's body was emitting a strong fighting spirit. In addition, their strength was not weak. Among a group of experts, they would feel a lot of pressure. This also showed that Yao Lei's willpower was not strong. A true expert would not be affected by this aura. He would directly ignore it, or even surpass it. However, these people were useless to Li Zongjiu. They were all trash. Li Zongjiu did not have the intention to compete with these children. Therefore, he just stood quietly at the side, waiting for it to start. The sooner it started, the sooner it would end. He did not come to this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to learn, but to go to the secret place of this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to investigate. In terms of alchemy skills, Li Zongjiu was more than qualified to be the dean of this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. N. Li Zongjiu replied indifferently. To be honest, Li Zongjiu was not here to make friends. Therefore, although Yao Lei looked quite beautiful, Li Zongjiu was not interested. Have you heard about Zhang Sun? He seemed to be under too much pressure last night, so he jumped off a building to commit suicide. Yao Lei said. However, in her heart, she was muttering. This Li Zongjiu did not have any feelings at all. I took the initiative to talk to you, but you did not say anything. You are even colder than him. The three of them came from the Black North Giant City. Therefore, Yao Lei used this matter to start a conversation with Li Zongjiu. Oh. Li Zongjiu still replied indifferently. No one was shocked by this matter, and no one was even curious. It seemed that for Li Zongjiu, joining this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor was the most important thing. He didn't care about anything else. Zhang Sun was not the only one who could not bear the pressure and jumped off a building. In the past, there were many people who did the same thing. Some did it before the exam, but most did it after the exam. I really did not expect that someone like Zhang Sun would commit suicide. Li Zongjiu glanced at Yao Lei beside him. Of course, he knew how people died. However, in the end, people said that it was a suicide. Naturally, it was to minimize the impact. Killing was not tolerated in Monarch City, but to say that it was a suicide to the public, that should be fine. The pressure before the exam was too great, so he could not bear it and jumped off a building. This kind of thing, no one could control, right? All candidates reached the Heavenly Pond Rainforest in 3 minutes. Just when Yao Lei wanted to continue chatting with Li Zongjiu to relieve the pressure, a voice suddenly came from above the courtyard. Heavenly Pond Rainforest. When they heard this voice, some people reacted quickly and immediately rushed in the direction of the Heavenly Pond Rainforest. In the forest behind the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor, there was a specially developed rainforest called the Heavenly Pond Rainforest. There was even a Yuan rune formation set up here that could change and adjust the weather. It was quite magical. In order to create this rainforest, they had spent a lot of money. Only the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor had the capital to create such a rainforest. Chapter 308. Thousands of figures moved at almost the same time and rushed towards the rainforest. During this process, there were people obstructing and restraining each other. Li Zongjiu jumped and left Yao Lei behind as he rushed forward. Li Zongjiu naturally knew where the Heavenly Pond Rainforest was. Hence, when Li Zongjiu flew out, he saw that many people had already found their direction and were rushing forward. Whoosh! Whoosh! You don't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Yao Lei was so angry that she stomped her feet. This guy doesn't know how to take care of girls at all. He directly left Yao Lei behind and went forward alone. Even if you mentioned it out of politeness, it was still better than not saying anything. However, Li Zongjiu just left like that. Yao Lei had no choice but to fly up by herself. However, when Yao Lei and some other people with slower reactions moved, they realized that their feet suddenly became extremely heavy. Not good. It's the gravity Yuan rune array. Yao Lei was not the only one. Some of the people who were about to fly directly fell from the sky because they could not control themselves. Bang! Gravity Yuan rune array. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor is still here. They are really willing to spend money. Someone who had just climbed over the wall fell down. He fell into the corner and ate a mouthful of wild grass. They were extremely impressed by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's actions. Only the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor could spend so much money to test the new students. It was impossible to complete the Gravity Yuan Rune Array that covered 3,000 people without more than 10 Yuan Rune Masters working at the same time. Whoosh! Li Zongjiu was one of the few people who rushed to the front. He already had a premonition of the gravity, so it didn't affect Li Zongjiu at all. If he paid a little attention, he wouldn't be tripped. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure flew over Li Zongjiu's head. How dare he behave so atrociously above the evil lord's head? Li Zongjiu wanted to see it. When he raised his head, he only saw a shadow. He could only see that the person was a woman, and she was wearing an extremely inconvenient long royal dress. It was as if they were here for a vacation. It was simply strange that there were such people here. The other party's yuan power was extremely powerful. Within a few leaps, he had already flashed past the buildings of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor and directly entered a forested area. Following which, his figure disappeared. That was fast. Just as Li Zongjiu was about to exert his strength, another white-clothed man flew over Li Zongjiu's body. Boom! From the looks of it, it was chasing after the woman in the palace dress. These young people are really full of energy. Li Zongjiu wasn't going to waste his energy on this. 3 minutes was still early, and there was plenty of time. After that, more and more people overtook Li Zongjiu. However, Li Zongjiu was not slow either. When he entered the Celestial Pond Rainforest, he arrived at the location of the exam elder. Li Zongjiu finally understood why these people were gathered here. Around the Celestial Pond Rainforest, there were 1,000 medicinal cauldrons placed. First come, first served. There would be no one left if they were late. At the front, there were already nearly 20 people sitting down. Following Li Zongjiu, there were nearly 30 people who arrived in the same batch. Those who have arrived, find a place to sit down. The medicinal cauldrons were arranged in a square formation. In front of these cauldrons, there was a vast cold pond. Celestial Pond. The Celestial Pond itself was a cold pond. In addition to the surrounding rainforest, it was extremely humid. After such a formation was set up, it was obvious that everyone was going to refine medicine here. In less than 2 minutes, this place was already filled with people. Some people, seeing that they couldn't catch up with the people in front, started to fight. However, those who were eliminated were directly sent flying by the exam elder with a wave of his hand. These people were sent flying and landed at the side. They could only regret that they weren't faster just now. That way, they wouldn't have lost this opportunity. I'm eliminated just like that. When Yao Lei arrived, she was among the last batch of people to arrive, which was why she arrived late. She simply couldn't believe her eyes. She was disqualified just like that. However, like Yao Lei, there were hundreds of people who were eliminated within these 3 minutes. In the end, only 2,000 people entered the official examination. When Yao Lei saw Li Zongjiu sitting in front of a medicinal cauldron without turning his head to look at her, she suddenly realized that the gap between her and Li Zongjiu, and even those people, wasn't decided after they sat down. Instead, it was decided from the very beginning. The gap between them was insurmountable. After letting out a bitter laugh, Yao Lei turned around and left in an extremely disappointed manner. However, there were even more people who were unable to accept this reality. They cried and made a ruckus by the side. However, the judge elder had set up a yuan power wall that blocked all of these people outside. Even their voices were unable to be transmitted in. The competition in the path of the strong had begun the moment one learned how to breathe. No one would wait for you. Everyone would only think about how to surpass you. If you failed, you failed. No one would sympathize with you. However, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was quite humane. For the next month, everyone could continue to stay in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and listen. If they performed well during this 1 month, they still had a chance to be accepted into the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. However, now, they could only wait outside. Some of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor students, who had been prepared beforehand, politely asked everyone to leave. After all, there were not many instructors in the Medicine Manor. Therefore, they had chosen to leave some simple tasks to the students to share the burden. Each of you will have a set of medicinal ingredients in front of you. You are not required to use all of your ingredients, nor are you allowed to use your own ingredients. The time limit is 14 hours. The winner will be determined by the quality of the pills refined. Now, let the pill refinement begin. The exam elder waved his hand and a ray of light shot into the sky. Then, the weather above the rainforest underwent an extremely drastic change. Rumble. Dark clouds surged and thunder rumbled. Everyone had yet to begin their pill refinement, but they had already been dealt such a blow. The white-clothed man sitting in the second seat glanced at the changes in the sky and smiled as he spoke to the lady in palace robes in front of him. The heavenly pond rainforest is most famous for its torrential rain. Su Li, you should be careful. If your dress gets dirty, it will be very difficult to wash it. This set of cypress green dress from the Ni Chang Pavilion must be quite expensive. Hearing the white-clothed man's words, Mo Su Li, who was wearing the cypress green dress, shot an extremely cold glance at him. So what if it's expensive? In any case, I will only wear this dress once. This lady was Mo Su Li. She was the disciple of the Eastern Victory State's medicine sovereign, Mo Su Li. Just her birth alone had already surpassed many people who were working hard. A casual word from the medicine sovereign would be enough for an ordinary person to enjoy for the rest of their life. Mo Su Li's innate talent was great. In addition to the medicine sovereign's guidance, wouldn't it be like adding wings to a tiger? This kind of person was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. Ordinary people simply couldn't catch up to him. Therefore, a piece of clothing that was worth a few 100,000 would be thrown away after wearing it once. Only someone like Mo Su Li could afford to spend it. The white-clothed man couldn't help curling his lips. What a nouveau riche. This white-clothed man wasn't a simple person either. Since Mo Su Li was able to speak to him, it indirectly proved that his identity wasn't simple. This person's identity was one of the four great young masters of the Tianyan dynasty, Mu Qingyun. The Mu family was known as a family of generals. Currently, there were a total of 3 generals holding positions in the military. Although they were scattered in different places, it was enough to prove the strength of the Mu family. They originally thought that the descendants of the Mu family would mostly be talented generals. However, who would have thought that Mu Qingyun would suddenly be born? From a young age, he displayed an extremely strong innate talent. This instantly made the entire Mu family overjoyed. Originally, in this family, from top to bottom, everyone was a boorish fellow who only knew how to fight. But now, there was finally a talent who understood alchemy. Such a good talent naturally couldn't be wasted. Although the rules of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor were very strict, if they were to reject a single seedling like Mu Qingyun, it would probably incur the wrath of the entire Mu family. It was even possible that the 3 great generals would come to visit them. Chapter 309. After hearing the examiner's request, everyone began to check the herbs in their hands. After some exchanges, they realized that the herbs in their hands were all different. Moreover, the quality of the herbs was also different. Those who were closer to the front would have higher quality herbs. As for those who were closer to the back, they were basically given a bunch of random herbs. This move was very ruthless as it directly gave such an ending. So what if it was unfair? The fairness of this world was achieved through strength. If you didn't have enough strength, then there would be no corresponding fairness. Because everyone's herbs were different, they weren't allowed to exchange and could only use their own herbs. Even if the types of herbs were the same, but the refining method was different, the refined pills would also be different. This was the charm of the pill. It was not always the same. Sometimes, if you took a wrong step, you would accidentally refine some new pills. You could become famous in one fell swoop. However, this kind of situation was rare. Even if it was by chance, it had to be built on a solid foundation. Not everyone could come up with a new formula. In his previous life, Li Zhongjiu had refined pills for 3,000 years. What kind of pill had he not seen before? Therefore, with the herbs in his hands, he could tell what kind of herbs to refine with just a quick glance. I can refine a level 3 fire dragon pill. If I'm lucky, it might be able to reach the level of level 4. Only Li Zhongjiu had the confidence to refine a level 3 pill to the level of a level 4 pill. As for the rest of the people, just the medicinal herbs in their hands were enough to give them a headache, because among these medicinal herbs, there were many. Among the herbs, the highest quality was only the 300-year-old herbs. To be able to refine a level 3 pill was already incredible. However, some people were confident in their own strength. Immediately, they opened their cauldrons to refine pills. This was a test of how well one had collected pill recipes. If one had more experience, then they would be able to refine more powerful pills. If one did not know how to use these medicinal ingredients, then it was very likely that one would miss the combination of the medicinal ingredients in one's hands. Boom! When more than 10 examinees started to circulate their elemental energy and started to cultivate their cauldrons, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck down from the sky. Thunderstorm weather. However, when the examinees looked up, they realized that only this rainforest area had such weather. In other places, it was still bright and cloudless. That was indeed the case. Shit! In this stormy weather, my elemental fire will definitely be affected. Some of the examinees immediately came to a realization. In this kind of stormy weather, there was interference from the outside world. Alchemy itself required concentration, so there were some alchemy rooms specially set up for you. However, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor needed everyone to refine pills in this stormy weather. What kind of operation was this? It was clear that he wanted them to blow up their furnaces. Many people did not have such experience. When the downpour of rain fell, many of the pill furnaces were extinguished, and the medicinal ingredients inside were turned into a pile of waste. No! Someone shouted loudly. This was their chance to become a disciple of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. How could this be? He couldn't believe it. It could even be said that it was over before it even started. The pain brought about by such a thing was hard for them to accept. At the very least, they had to refine the pill. Before coming here, they had heard that the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's assessment was extremely difficult. However, now they finally knew the truth. This test was so out of the ordinary. Many people were wailing. When the pill furnaces were extinguished, it meant that they had lost their chance. Hence, it was useless to do anything now. This is really interesting. I almost fell for it. In a corner, Kuan Erisher, who came from Kuan Castle, emitted a blue flame from his palm. Because the temperature of the flame within the pill furnace was extremely high, it caused the surrounding raindrops to fall to the side and were directly burned away. It formed a vacuum. Obviously, Kuan Erisher had experience in refining pills in this stormy weather. Many people followed suit and released the flame within the pill furnace. However, this increased the difficulty of refining pills. At the same time, the consumption of elemental energy was extremely terrifying. They might not be able to last until the end of refining the pill. As for those with rich elemental energy, they naturally did not have to worry about this. He directly propped up an elemental energy barrier and blocked the raindrops from the outside world. Mo Suli took off the bracelet on his wrist. With a light flick, it flew into the air. Immediately, a 5-colored light spread out and enveloped Mo Suli. He is really rich. He actually used an elemental item to block the rain. Beside him, Mu Qingyun could not help but smack his lips. He didn't have such a heroic spirit, but his origin energy wasn't weak either. He covered the medicinal cauldron in front of him and allowed the rainwater to fall on his body. However, he wasn't simple either. After all the rainwater fell on his body, he didn't get wet. Instead, under his control, the rainwater was gently discharged and flowed to the ground along the corner of his clothes. After the initial panic, Lin Fan's expression changed. Towards the end, they were able to easily calm down. Moreover, they were very familiar with their own situation. The exam elder stood on a tree branch and looked down at the remaining 1,000 people below. They were all immersed in their training. Thousands of elemental energies were released and the entire heavenly pond rainforest was formed into a colorful aura. This person is a little interesting. The exam elder's gaze instantly fell on Li Zongjio. Among the 1,000 examinees present, only Li Zongjio did not use any elemental energy to block the rain. He allowed the raindrops to fall on his body and drip into the pill furnace. At the same time, he also refined the raindrops into the pill furnace. Such a terrifying method caused the exam elder's eyes to flash. To be able to achieve such a level, it was not easy. This flame, what a pure energy, his gaze immediately focused on Li Zongjio's flame. On the field, other than Li Zongjio, the flames of the other examinees were also formed by a special elemental energy flame. However, Li Zongjio's flame was restrained. This meant that Li Zongjio had very good control over his flame, unlike the others. Under the situation where his face was covered in flames, it gave off the feeling that he wanted to tell everyone that his flame was different. However, no matter how deeply Li Zongjio hid it, the few elite examinees were still able to notice it. After all, there was not much difference between them. Furthermore, even if he wanted to hide the power of the obsidian flame, it was not such an easy thing to do. That guy, where did he come from? What a strong flame. If I were to exchange blows with him, I'm afraid that this flame would be enough to make me suffer. Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun simultaneously looked towards Li Zongjio's direction. There was also Kun Arashir, who came from Kun Castle. The flame in Kun Arashi's hand was a wisp of light blue energy. This was a type of elemental fire that was born in Kun Castle. It was called the Kun Blue Flame. When the Kun Blue Flame was at its peak, there was naturally nothing to say. However, just a moment ago, Kun Arashir clearly felt that the Kun Blue Flame in his hand actually emitted a trace of fear. And the target of this fear was Li Zongjio's direction. Unknowingly, Li Zongjio had already attracted the attention of these young experts. However, Li Zongjio was completely unaware of it. He did not care about their gazes and only focused on refining the pill in his hand. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.